Layla Relowin was an incredibly beautiful and sensible girl. Previously, she had lived in a happy family with both her father and mother. But who would have thought that her mother would have an affair with another man and leave home? Layla's father, unable to bear such a tremendous shock, transformed into a different person, spending his days drinking, and eventually he passed away in agony. Layla now became an orphan at just 12 years old, forced to live with distant relatives. But they couldn't possibly raise her forever, so an uncle entrusted her to Bill Lemmer, a gardener at the Duke's mansion who had no relation to Layla's family. What would Layla's new life be like in a strange new place? Would she still have to endure torment and contempt from everyone? Let's follow her story. The train was moving towards the city's outskirts, where there were beautiful views and fresh air.
Layla, in spring when the flowers bloom, let's go to the park together. Father, with his frail face, gentle smile, and that promise, all of it has become a thing of the past. Spring no longer visits me. The life of an orphan who has to live with relatives is truly miserable. Layla was always made fun of by the boys in the family. If you want to stay in our house, you have to perform a welcoming ceremony. At such times, she could only weakly protest. If I don't like it, don't do it. One of them started to lose control of his emotions and angrily told her, "You don't like it? Then get out." My aunt's children would torment me whenever they had the chance. They used harsh and contemptuous words to insult Layla. "Even if you are family, I'll have to send you to an orphanage. Why should our family have to raise you? A child abandoned by her mother?" Not only did they use words to torment her mentally, but those kids also used physical force to abuse her body. They mercilessly pushed Layla into the lake without feeling any guilt whatsoever.
Layla sank deep into the pit, just as she was sinking into the despair that this life brought her. I struggled to return home, my body covered in injuries. Immediately, Uncle's punch landed squarely on me, scattering red syrup across the floor. He furiously blamed all misfortunes on a small girl. "It's all because of this spoiled brat. Ever since you came here, bad luck has constantly plagued us." Especially on days when he was broke from the casino, no one could stop his cruel abuse. The aunt tried with all her might to stop his violent behavior. "Please stop. Are you trying to kill her?" But once the alcohol was in him, not even heaven itself could stop him. My time here was like hell, but for someone with nowhere else to go like me, there was no choice but to endure. However, misfortunes piled up like snow falling all night. Layla said in a trembling and weak voice, "Auntie, I won't cause any trouble. I'll be obedient and do everything I'm asked, so please don't abandon me, Auntie." However, the response to her pitiful plea was a dismissive wave of the hand. "It's over, Layla. Go to other relatives and ask for their help." Layla looked up at her aunt with tear-filled eyes. Her aunt had no other choice but to make this heartbreaking decision. Wouldn't it be better here? Go well. On the coldest winter day, I became a child without a home. After that, I sought refuge with other relatives. However, all Layla received were scornful and contemptuous words. "What good is a daughter? She's just an extra expense. What mistake did you make to be thrown out? I have no intention of taking in children like you. Look, how do you think we can help you in this situation? Even cutting expenses isn't enough. No one wants to take in the orphan of a traitor, a child abandoned by her mother." Was it a coincidence? While she was at a dead end in her life, a distant uncle called out. He was writing something on a piece of paper as he asked, "Do you know Berg?" Layla quickly replied, "Yes, I do." The uncle handed her a piece of paper and instructed, "Go there and find this person." "I will make contact first." Layla sat intently reading the information written on the paper. She murmured, "So I have left Lovia, the place where I was born and grew up, boarded a train, crossed the border, and am now on my way to Berg." The train continued to run smoothly on the tracks. Layla sat inside the train car with a brighter expression, looking forward to a beautiful future ahead, along with a small hope placed in the unfamiliar name on the paper. Finally, Layla arrived at Berg Kalva station. She carried her bag and slowly stepped off the train. Outside, people were bustling about. Layla stood dumbfounded, looking at the surrounding scenery for a long time, a wave of anxiety rising in her heart. She told herself, "This is Berg. Will I be able to find that person? What if I can't find them? I can't go back to Lovia now." Then she reassured herself, No, don't think like that. This is the country where father was born. That's why I can speak Berg." During the time when her family was still harmonious, her father was always proud of his daughter Layla, often saying, "My daughter is truly a genius." Layla quickly went to look for someone to ask for directions, telling herself, "It's okay, everything will be fine." While looking around for help, Layla spotted a postman passing by. She quickly called out, "Hello, postman. I need to go to the place written here. Could you give me directions?" The postman bent down to read the address on the paper. Let's see. Duke Erhardt's gardener, Bill Lemmer? If it's him, I know him well. As it happens, I'm on my way to the mansion right now. Follow me. Layla smiled brightly as everything went smoothly. "Oh, really? Thank you so much." Sitting in the carriage, Layla innocently gazed at the romantic scenery along the way. Everything made her exclaim with delight. The sadness in her heart seemed to be completely soothed. Over there was the mansion where the Duke lived. This world was like something out of a fairy tale. Is he the gardener for this beautiful mansion? What kind of person is he? Will he accept me? A myriad of questions kept popping up in Layla's mind. Suddenly, she stopped short when she saw something ahead. An elderly man was diligently gardening. Layla knew that was the person she was looking for. She immediately tidied her clothes. With a direct manner, a bright and polite face, she approached and asked, "Excuse me, are you Mr. Bill Lemmer?" The man immediately stuck the shovel into the ground, stopped what he was doing, and confirmed, yes. Layla had been eagerly looking forward to meeting him. He looked at her and introduced himself. "I am Bill Lemmer." His gruff, somewhat fierce expression made Layla a little scared. "Calm down, I've practiced this many times on the train." Immediately after, she quickly regained her composure and confidently introduced herself. "Hello, Mr. Bill Lemmer. My name is Layla Ruellen. I'm from Levita." As she spoke, she flashed a radiant smile to win him over. Bill thought to himself, "Levita? No wonder her pronunciation sounds so strange." He asked, "Do you mean crossing the border?" Layla quickly replied, "Yes, I came by train." Bill curiously got straight to the point. "So why are you looking for me?" Mr. Bill's question caught Layla a little off guard. She stood speechless in confusion. It was clear she had said she would contact him beforehand.
Bill was also surprised when the girl just stood still without saying a word. Suddenly, the postman from earlier appeared, waving to Bill. "Have you met the girl?" he immediately asked. "Did you bring this child?" The postman explained. "Yes, I met her at the station. She said she was looking for Bill, so I brought her here. Just in time, there's a letter for you." Bill reached out and took the letter. The postman said, "It seems to be a letter from Levita." Layla and Bill were also startled in surprise upon hearing this. Bill carefully opened the letter to read it. The letter read, "Dear Bill Lemmer, a child will come to you named Layla Rowellin, daughter of Albert Rowellin. Her mother had an affair and left home for a long time, and because of that, Albert became addicted to alcohol and died from illness. So the child moved in with relatives, but they were all not in a position to care for her, and my family is also too poor to feed another mouth." Just reading up to this point, Bill already felt something was wrong, but he still tried to continue reading. "It was a long time ago, but I heard you work as a gardener at the famous Duke's mansion. Among her distant relatives, I thought your situation was the best, so I sent her to you." Bill went ballistic. He couldn't contain his emotions and screamed, "Aunt, what distant relatives? They're so distant they're practically strangers. Her father and I don't even remember each other's faces. Now you're telling me to raise the child of a distant relative I haven't seen in over 20 years. Why send that tiny little girl to Bill Lemmer, a widower like me?" At the end of the letter, Layla's uncle added a postscript. "If things don't work out, send her to an orphanage." Bill crumpled the letter in frustration, feeling he had been put on the spot. This damn guy. Why did he send the message so quickly? What was he thinking? Was he even sane? No matter what, they're still relatives and adults. How could they let the child come all the way here alone? Layla was incredibly touched by the stranger's caring words. Bill also realized the true intentions of Layla's relatives. That's right, whether she lived or died in this remote, desolate land wouldn't affect them at all. He glanced at Layla, the most pitiful child at that moment. It was still cold and she was wearing so little. Layla was as thin as a rail, seemingly not having eaten properly. She had traveled so far, yet her luggage consisted of only one bag. Bill buried his face in his hands in helplessness, facing this difficult situation. Layla called out, "Uncle Bill." He turned his head to look at Layla, his face filled with sorrow. The little girl tried to stand on her tiptoes as much as she could and said, "I'm not that small. I'll be 12 in a week. I can read, write, and I can help with any kind of work." Bill's eyes widened in surprise at the girl's understanding. A sudden silence enveloped both of them. The sun was also slowly setting. Uncle Bill had tidied up his belongings. He told Layla, "Come with me. First, you need to eat your fill. Then we can figure things out." So Layla quickly followed behind Uncle Bill. Just as they arrived at the small house, darkness had fallen. Inside, everything was arranged very neatly. Layla looked around curiously. Aren't the other family members here? Suddenly, her eyes widened as if realizing something. Could it be that he lives alone? A moment later, Layla was also seated properly at the dining table. Noticing she only ate a tiny bit, Uncle Bill immediately asked, "Layla, is that all your portion?" Layla quickly explained, "Yes, Uncle, I really only eat a little." Uncle Bill said bluntly, "I hate picky eaters. After all, you should be able to eat as much as a cow, shouldn't you?" Layla was extremely surprised, as this was the first time anyone had asked her to eat so much. So she reached forward and piled a lot more food on her plate. As Layla ate, she said, "Eating like a cow might be a bit difficult, but I'm quite good at eating." Uncle Bill thought to himself, it seems the girl has lived by her own wit. Suddenly, he became serious and asked, "But child, aren't you afraid of this uncle?" Layla gave an innocent smile and answered honestly, "You don't scold or hit me."
Uncle, you're even giving me such delicious food. I'm very grateful to you, Uncle. You're a good person." Those words seemed to touch Uncle Bill's heart. How had this girl lived to be so grateful for such small things? These damn people. He slammed his glass down on the table in vexation. Even though the girl was very pitiful, it was absurd for him to raise this child. The child's problem wouldn't be resolved until next week at the earliest, but where on earth was he supposed to send her? A new day began. Layla stood looking at herself in the mirror. She recalled Uncle Bill's words from last night. Stay here until you decide where you want to be. She was deeply saddened to see that the situation hadn't improved much from before. As expected, it was the same again. Where was she to go now? Layla opened the door and stepped out of the room. The first thing that caught her eye was Uncle Bill standing and cooking breakfast. Layla smiled brightly and started a conversation with him. "Did you sleep well, Uncle Bill?" He turned his head and replied, "Yeah, pretty good." Then he focused on cooking again. Layla stood there, bewildered, not knowing what to do. So she immediately went to help him. Uncle Bill said, "Please take these plates to the dining table." Layla carefully set the food on the table. Finally, the uncle and niece sat down together at the table and enjoyed breakfast. Layla said, "I'm going to eat heartily." Uncle Bill served her a full plate of food and said, "Here, eat a lot." Layla's eyes widened when she saw his devoted care for her. She burst out laughing and replied, "Yes, I'll eat like an ox." Inside the mansion, the servants gathered in small groups, gossiping nonstop. One person said, "Has everyone heard the news? Bill has adopted a little girl." The others were all stunned by this sensational news. Bill adopted a little girl? It would be more reasonable to say he adopted a lion or an elephant. It's true, it's definitely a little girl. How strange. Ever since his wife passed away, Mr. Bill has lived alone until now. He doesn't have any children. There must be something fishy going on here. If that rumor is true, isn't that a big deal? How could someone as stiff as a log raise a little girl? Who knows, maybe he'll take better care of her than we would. He has a talent for caring for flowers. He is recognized by Duchess Nomar as the best gardener. Perhaps the qualities he possesses for his work will help him take good care of the child. Good heavens, children are nothing like flowers. That's none of my business. In any case, it's just a rumor, so let's not pay attention to it anymore. Suddenly, a young man by the window said to everyone, "It doesn't seem to be just a baseless rumor. Look over there." Curious, everyone flocked to the window to see for themselves. They all jostled for a better view. In the courtyard below, Layla was carrying 2 potted plants, following behind to assist Uncle Biller. The onlookers exclaimed, "My goodness, it's actually a little girl. Heavens above, a little girl with blonde hair. How old is she? Look at her running behind him." But how did a child like that come to live with Mr. Biller? The strange story of Layla Ruellen and Orphan quickly spread among the staff. Inside the mansion, Layla carefully brought the flowers to the maid. "I've brought the flowers." Everyone was very friendly when talking to her. "Thank you, you're Layla, right? Hey, take that cookie." Layla was startled and asked, "You're giving it to me?" The older girl smiled and said, "Yes, enjoy your snack." Layla's face lit up with happiness as she held the package of cookies. "Thank you. Goodbye, everyone." After learning about Layla's unfortunate fate, everyone was moved. So in the end, she still has to go to the orphanage? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what Bill Lemmer decides. Whenever people asked about the child, Bill Lemmer repeated the same answer. "I'm thinking, because I can't keep her here, I need to consider it carefully." He thought about it from spring through summer. The sight of Layla following Bill Lemmer and helping people gradually became familiar. The servants who observed the two concluded, Bill Lemmer is the best gardener in Arvis, a person with a natural talent for growing flowers. At Bill Lemmer's house, Kimona brought him a basket. "What's that?" she excitedly said. "Cookies and cake from the mistress's party yesterday. Uncle?" Uncle Bill bluntly said, "I hate sweets." But her reply made Uncle Bill so embarrassed he didn't know where to hide. "Then why is this Layla's?" Uncle Bill complained. "Lately, everyone has been using Layla as an excuse to come and go from my house. Someone's having a good time." A kind maid gave Layla a pretty dress. "This is my sister's dress, but it's still very new." They even brought books. These are detective novels. And some brought many writing tools. Even the nanny who had never visited me came. Sometimes people come to see Layla even when there's no reason, which gives me a headache. Miss Mona said, "That's because Layla is naturally very beautiful. A child who behaves politely and cleverly makes everyone unable to resist taking care of them, just like an adorable little squirrel frolicking in the forest." It had been a very long time since there was a child in the ducal estate. Do you remember? Our duke was very elegant from a young age. As the two were sitting and telling stories to each other, Miss Mona screamed in alarm when she saw Layla climbing a tree trunk. "Wait, Bill, what is she doing?" "Look over there, the little girl is climbing the tree." In contrast to Mona's fearful attitude, Bill just sat calmly without a hint of worry. What's more, he even praised her, saying he didn't know who taught her, but her tree climbing skills were quite good. Hearing that, Mona flew into a rage and yelled at Bill, "What are you saying? Did you teach her that yourself?" Bill stammered, "How could I raise a child like that?" He was a little startled, but still confidently declared, "I'm raising her well. What's the problem?" Mona grumbled. Yes, but she's a pearl. Just doing delicate things like planting flowers isn't enough. She continued, Oh my goodness, are you planning to raise that pretty little girl to be a boy just like you? Just imagining that, horror was clearly written all over her face. No, that's awful. Bill immediately dismissed Mona's silly thoughts and said, Honestly, you're worrying for nothing. She just needs to eat well and be healthy, that's all. Mona gently asked, Anyway, have you decided yet? Bill pretended not to know anything and asked back, What are you talking about?
Ms. Mona asked, Regarding Layla, summer has arrived. Have you still not decided where to send her? In response to that question, Mr. Bill chose to remain silent, not uttering a single word. He had intended to consider her situation for a week, but still hadn't made a decision. Ultimately, there was no other option but to send her to an orphanage. But was the orphanage trustworthy? Mr. Bill cared deeply for Layla. Whenever she went somewhere, he would carefully remind her, Layla, don't go too far. She cheerfully replied, Yes, Uncle, I'll go to the riverbank and then come back. Every time he saw Layla, Mr. Bill felt deeply troubled. Where should I send her? Could she grow up without suffering any more harm? This was a question without an answer. Deep in Bill's thoughts, summer had already come. He didn't know when. The girl gradually grew up under his warm yet indifferent care. Layla enjoyed gazing at the beautiful Arvis garden. Flocks of birds fluttered in the forest as if it were a fairy tale land. Layla was a girl who loved birds.
The forest also changed daily as the child grew up. Branches blossomed and bore fruit, the weather was warm, and animals expanded their range of activity. Each day welcomed new lives being born. Looking at the sparkling reflections on the surface of the Schulter River, this place suddenly resembled a paradise, making the nightmarish time in La Vida feel distant. Layla sat on her familiar tree branch, recording what she saw each day. One day, when she had to leave this place, she would just need to open this notebook. Layla innocently sat enjoying the peaceful moments in this forest, as if misfortune would never return. After a day of wandering around, Layla finally returned home. She pushed the door wide open. I'm home, Uncle. Where are you going? Uncle Biller replied, There are a few places I need to go, so I'm getting ready to head out. Layla hesitated, calling out anxiously, Uncle. Seeing this, Uncle Biller immediately reassured her, Don't make that face. I'm just going downtown to buy some new clothes. Layla asked curiously, Clothes? Uncle Biller explained, Duke Herhart is returning soon, and I can't have you greeting him looking like that.
Shimmering sunlight filtered through the leaves. Layla walked along, asking curiously, Uncle, the Duke is the owner of this territory, isn't he? Uncle Biller replied, That's right. The semester is almost over, so he will return to the mansion. He will live in Arvis during this summer vacation. Layla was surprised. If it's summer vacation, does the Duke also have to go to school? Uncle Biller explained, The Duke is only 18 years old, so he is required to attend school. Layla's eyes widened in astonishment. The Duke is 18? Uncle Biller couldn't help but chuckle at her naive expression. So surprised? Let me tell you something even more surprising. He became Duke when he was your age. The more Layla heard, the more shocked she became. My age? Suddenly, Biller gently stroked his little niece's head. At Berg Station, everyone lined up formally to welcome the Duke back. Finally, he arrived. The Duke appeared dashing, with breathtaking good looks, no different from an A-list celebrity.
The moment he saw his grace, the butler immediately bowed in welcome. Welcome, master. Allow me to escort you to the mansion. The people present there were also awestruck by the Duke's dazzling beauty. Everyone took turns escorting him back to the mansion. Outside the station, the Duke suddenly stopped short when he saw the mode of transport he would be using, a horse-drawn carriage. The butler replied, Yes, your grace, Duchess Nomar is not comfortable with cars. The Duke smiled faintly and said, I know, she has always considered cars to be vulgar and dangerous lumps of metal. Hearing this, the butler quickly took the blame. My apologies, master. Next time I will... However, the Duke said with amusement, It's all right, an old-fashioned experience now and then isn't bad. Let's depart. The butler immediately acknowledged the order. Yes, master. At the mansion grounds, everyone had already gathered to welcome His Grace the Duke. The horse-drawn carriage carrying the Duke was moving through Berg Street. Inside the carriage, the butler carefully reported a few necessary matters to the Duke. During your stay in Arvis, we will have a social engagement.
The board of directors discussed the issue of insurance for commercial vessels. All the way there, the butler kept talking incessantly. The carriage passed through an area shaded by 2 rows of green trees. From inside, one could see the peaceful and poetic beauty of the scenery. Seeing this beautiful scene, the Duke couldn't help but smile faintly, unable to contain his delight. At the mansion, a stern voice spoke up, reminding everyone, no one is allowed to make any mistakes today, understand? Everything that has been prepared, make sure to execute it perfectly. Layla thought to herself, is it because the Duke is arriving today? Everyone seems so tense. The maid leaned down to talk to Layla. Did you buy new clothes to welcome the Duke?
The girl replied excitedly with a smile. Yes, Uncle bought them for me. After hearing Layla say that, Uncle Biller's face showed no expression at all. An announcement rang out. The Duke has arrived. The carriage pulled up right in the mansion's grounds. The Duke's relatives also came out to welcome him back. His grandmother and mother were both eagerly looking forward to seeing their grandson after so many days apart.
The Duke stepped down from the carriage with a serious expression. His grandmother actively reached out her hand and said, "Mardius, you're back." He immediately hugged his grandmother and asked, "Are you still well?" Then he turned to hug his mother. "Hello, Mother." His mother smiled and praised Mardius. "You've grown taller so quickly." His grandmother chuckled and told her grandson, "I've prepared dinner. Let's go inside." Meanwhile, Layla also shone like an angel. Throughout the entire time, she only dared to keep her head bowed, looking at the ground, and could only see the footsteps of people passing by. After everyone had left, Layla finally spoke up and asked Uncle Bill, "Uncle, has the Duke gone inside?" He turned to look at her and said, "Next time you should greet him." She politely replied, "Yes, Uncle." On the way back home, Layla walked and talked with Uncle Bill. "It's a pity, Uncle. I had new clothes prepared but didn't get to meet him." He said, "The Duke often stays in the forest to sing, so you just need to ask for permission beforehand." She curiously asked, "So can I ask for his permission?" He replied, "Of course, but the Duke often gets lost in the forest, so you must be careful." "Yes, Uncle." Layla asked again, "Uncle, why does the Duke like to be alone in the forest?" He said, "Because there he can play his instrument and sing without fear of anyone hearing him." Afterwards, Uncle Bill took her to the changing room. There were many beautiful silk dresses hanging on the racks. Layla chose a dress made of white cotton fabric. It was the dress she had always dreamed of. After changing, Layla went to meet Uncle Bill. "Thank you, Uncle." Uncle Bill smiled. "Do you want to stay here, or shall I take you to the Duke?" Layla happily replied, "I want to go see him." "All right, but he's in the forest, so I can't go with you." He smiled and added, "But I'll take you to a place from where you can walk to him." "Thank you, Uncle." Afterwards, Uncle Bill led Layla to a skull path leading into the forest. "I'll go ahead now. When you want to return, you can come back by yourself." "Yes, Uncle," Layla said softly and walked away. The Duke was in the forest singing sad songs. His voice was beautiful, gentle, and clear. Layla stood listening for a long time before approaching him. He was leaning against a tree trunk, looking up at the sky. Then he turned to look at her. Their eyes met. He wasn't angry, but didn't say anything either. She immediately asked, "Sir, could you sing one more song?" "Who are you?" he asked. "I am Layla, Bill's friend." He smiled faintly and said, "All right, but you must keep my singing a secret." "Yes, sir." He began to sing. His voice was deep, warm, and soulful. Layla listened to him sing and felt a sense of peace in her heart. After he finished singing, she asked again, "Sir, could you show me your instrument?" "This is the instrument my mother gave me. Would you like to try it?" He handed her the instrument. "Thank you, sir." She took the instrument and began to play a sad song. He listened intently to her play, not expecting her to play so beautifully. After she finished playing, he said, "You play wonderfully." She happily replied, "Thank you, sir." He then invited her to sit beside him and talk. They talked very happily. He asked, "How old are you?" "I'm 14 years old, sir." He smiled faintly and said, "Then I am 2 years older than you." "Sir, could you tell me about your mother?" "My mother was a beautiful and gentle woman. She loved me very much. But after she passed away, I no longer wanted to meet anyone." Layla gently took his hand and said, "Sir, I know you're very sad, but please don't be sad anymore. I will always be by your side." He turned to look at her and said, "Thank you, Layla." "Sir, could you come home with me?" "All right, but you must promise me that you will never leave me." "Yes, sir," she happily replied. The Duke and Layla went home together. Uncle Bill was very happy to see this. He said, "Sir, you're back." "Yes," he replied. "And this is my niece, Layla," Uncle Bill introduced. "Hello, sir," Layla said politely. "Hello," he replied. "Sir, may I cook dinner for you?" Layla asked. "All right," he replied. Afterwards, Layla went into the kitchen and cooked dinner. Uncle Bill and the Duke sat and talked. He asked, "Sir, where did you meet Layla?" "I met her in the forest," he replied. "She is a very kind and lovely girl," Uncle Bill said. "Indeed," he replied. Afterwards, Layla brought out dinner. The food was delicious. The Duke and Uncle Bill ate very happily. After dinner, the Duke said again, "Layla, could you sing for me?" "Yes, sir," she happily replied, and began to sing. Her voice was very clear and melodious. The Duke listened to her sing and felt very happy. After she finished singing, the Duke said again, "You sing beautifully." "Thank you, sir," she replied. The Duke then said, "Could you stay here tonight?" "Yes, sir," she happily replied. Afterwards, the Duke took Layla to a bedroom. The bedroom was very beautiful and luxurious. Layla loved this room very much. "Can you sleep here?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she replied. Afterwards, the Duke returned to his own room. Layla lay on the bed and fell asleep. From then on, Layla dreamed of being in a flower-filled garden, meeting the Duke, and together they would go to the river, the forest, and the house. Every morning, Layla woke up to find the Duke playing his instrument or reading a book. They had breakfast together, then strolled in the forest, the garden, or chatted in the room, telling each other about flowers, birds, or books. The peaceful days passed by, filled with the sound of music, songs, and joyful conversations. Does the Duke enjoy the forest? Uncle Bill recounted that roughly he did. The Duke was very fond of hunting. Layla was utterly surprised. She asked again, "Hunting in the forest?" Uncle Bill replied nonchalantly, "Yes, isn't it obvious that the Duke hunts in the forest of his own domain?" She pressed on, "So does the Duke also hunt birds?" Uncle Bill said, "The Duke probably enjoys hunting birds the most. You'd be surprised if you saw him shoot. Though still young, he is a marksman." Layla clutched her dress, then hesitantly asked, "Why shoot birds? Even without hunting, there's plenty of food in the mansion."
Uncle Bill gently explained. For the nobility, hunting is a pastime. Birds are the most interesting target among all species. Layla's eyes began to well up with tears. She honestly said, I hope the Duke won't enjoy hunting anymore. Her words made Uncle Bill freeze. Oh dear, don't utter such difficult things. Bill insisted on asking again, could that possibly happen? However, the answer to her question was Uncle Bill's helpless silence. A week later in the Arvis forest, Layla excitedly ran into the forest because she heard the chirping of baby birds coming from the top of a tall tree. She quickly looked up. Immediately, she climbed up to where the sound was coming from to check. Finally, the eggs had hatched. There were 5 baby birds. So for the entire afternoon, Layla lay stretched out on the tree, watching them. Are you hungry? Wait a moment. Your mother is out looking for food and will be back soon. With that, Layla slowly sat up. Old memories suddenly flooded her mind. Mom, where are you going? Back then, her mother gave her a gift and said, Yes, Layla, I'm going very far away. Layla innocently asked, So you'll come back late? She replied, Very late. She asked again, Will you come back when I finish this jar of candy? The mother gently touched Layla's cheek and replied, Yes, that's right. Layla sat lost in thought as she recalled those memories. She looked up at the sky, then was startled to realize, There's the mother bird. It turns out the mother bird has returned with a worm in its mouth. Layla hurried away at once. She needed to quickly get out of sight, because if she stayed, they would become wary. She landed softly and only dared to stand below, observing them from a distance. All 5 baby sparrows had successfully hatched. Their feathers were soft, and after only 2 weeks, they had developed very well. Layla recorded all of this in her diary. Layla excitedly said, At this rate, it won't be long before I can see the fledglings fly. She became much more cheerful and thought, I must let everyone know. Suddenly, she heard the sound of horses moving very close below. Layla curiously peeked her head down to see. She wondered to herself, Who is that? Would it be all right if I went down? Then she answered herself, No, it's best to wait for him to pass. So she sat perfectly still in the tree, not daring to move even a little. I intended to go down after he passed, but unfortunately, Mapi chose this very tree as his resting spot. Layla strained forward to see when he would leave. Her eyes sparkled when she saw his face. However, due to carelessness, Layla accidentally slipped. It made her stumble and fall forward. Hearing a strange sound, Mardias quickly glanced to see what it was. At the same time, he drew the gun he had prepared and aimed it straight at the source of the sound. Seeing the gun, Layla was startled and panicked when she saw the Duke pointing the barrel straight at her. Could that be a gun? Layla frantically hugged the tree trunk and tremblingly explained, I was going to wait for you to pass before coming down. Mardias lowered his gun and looked up to ask, Who are you? Layla trembled as she replied, I am Rewilin. He asked again, curious, What? She used all her composure to answer clearly and loudly, It's Layla Rewilin. As soon as she finished speaking, she quickly climbed down and ran away. Seeing Layla running and screaming as if being chased by a ghost, Uncle Bill was startled and asked, What's wrong, Layla? She frantically recounted, Uncle, I just met someone in the forest. I think it was the Duke. Jet black hair, deep blue eyes. His voice was as soft as a feather, and he was holding a gun. More people would surely arrive soon. After Layla finished recounting her story, Uncle Biller burst out laughing. I told you so. You must have met Duke Harhart out hunting. I mentioned it before. You might see the Duke in the forest more often from now on. Did you greet him? Layla was still haunted by the earlier scene. Greet him? How? At that moment, Layla was nothing short of disheveled and couldn't even articulate her name clearly. Suddenly, Layla's eyes widened in surprise as she realized, if that was the case, that person was the Duke. On this side, the Duke had raised his gun and begun hunting. A loud gunshot rang out, startling Layla slightly. That gunshot was hunting. Layla was stunned at the thought of the scenario, so he was hunting birds. Uncle Biller's words echoed in Layla's ears. The Duke probably enjoys bird hunting the most. You'd be surprised if you saw the Duke shoot. Even though he's young, he's a marksman. Subconsciously, Layla could only scream to stop him. No, Uncle Biller said, placing a hand on Layla's shoulder. Come on, go inside. Seeing her stand still as if rooted to the spot, he called out again. Layla. Heartbroken tears streamed down Layla's face. Marcius Herhart, the heir to the most prestigious family, second only to the imperial family, he possessed the qualities and dignity of a top-tier noble with an elegant and harmonious appearance. Everyone praised him as the masterpiece of the Herhart family. It seemed everyone was proud of and respected him. Only one person in the domain, Layla Rewelin, opted differently. That day, Layla rushed into the forest with the thought, if he was still there, many birds would lose their lives. For him, the smaller the bird, the harder it was to catch, and the more interesting it became. Therefore, they were targets whose survival was a challenge. He didn't even bother to pay attention to the prey he had shot, whether it was bloody or dead, simply leaving it as it was and walking away. Not long ago, a mother sparrow had lost her life while foraging for food for her young.
The young birds had just lost their mother. Lila carefully used a cloth to place their bodies inside. The birds had slowly passed away because they couldn't fly out of their nest even once. During the month the Duke was hunting in the forest, Layla secretly buried the unfortunate birds and decided to name him the Beautiful Bird Hunter. Of course, that was Layla's own decision. No matter what happened, Arva's forest still retained its picturesque beauty. Layla stood inside the house, watching a new day through the window. Uncle Biller also stood silently watching Layla for a long time. He understood her sadness as the birds passed away one by one. Biller unexpectedly walked closer to Layla and extended his hand in front of her. She looked up at him with affectionate eyes. Seeing her adorable face, Uncle Biller also instinctively smiled. Layla placed her small hand on his. The garden inside the mansion had a very large ancient tree. Layla spread out a mat and sat under the tree's canopy, while he was working in the hot weather.
So, can I rest alone? But what if I say I want to work? Uncle Biller grumbled, I told you to sit here. I will be really angry if you follow me again. No matter how much she pleaded or tried, he was determined not to change his mind. I hate disobedient children, understand? Faced with those threats, Layla could only obediently comply. After giving his instructions, Uncle Biller didn't forget to pat her head before leaving for work. Come out when I call you later. If you're hungry, just eat the peaches. Layla was dejected, her face downcast. Suddenly, a stranger approached where she was sitting. A boy, upon seeing Layla, excitedly greeted her. Hello? She looked up, her face full of bewilderment. Who is this? I've never seen him before. The boy sat down next to Layla and started chatting as if they had been close friends for a long time. Do you live here? Layla replied, I live with Uncle Biller. He was extremely surprised. Uncle Biller? Don't tell me he's that scary gardener. Layla quickly spoke up in his defense. He's not scary, he said, but he still couldn't stop being afraid of Uncle Bill. Do you get that impression every time you meet him? Layla asked him back. Do you live here too? The boy replied with a smile. No, I came with my dad. My dad is their family's private doctor. Today he came to examine the old madam. Sometimes I come here with him. Mrs. Norma had agreed to let the boy come along. After hearing that, Layla could only reply, I see. The boy seemed to really like Layla. She felt quite puzzled as this boy kept staring at her. He curiously asked her, How old are you? Layla shyly replied, 12 years old. Hearing that, the boy laughed with delight. Like me? But you look so small. Layla stared at him wide-eyed when she heard him criticize her body, so she retorted bluntly, You're small too. Seeing himself criticized by a girl, he immediately stood up and boasted, What? No way. I'm the tallest in my class. Layla pouted and said, You're still smaller than Uncle Bill anyway. After hearing her words,
He replied in shock, What? There's no one taller than that, boss, is there? Not even an adult. Layla insisted, No, she's just small. He whined, Aren't you being unreasonable? The boy immediately changed the subject. The shade here is so cool. Hearing that, Layla murmured to herself, So does that mean he's going to stay here? She looked at the bag of peaches that Uncle Bill had prepared, so she took out the knife and a peach and meticulously peeled it. The boy sitting next to her saw this and asked curiously, That's a knife. You're quite something. Why would a girl carry that in her bag? Layla said, Uncle Bill put it in for me. Don't tease me. After cutting the peach in half, Layla gave him one half and asked, Do you want some peach? The boy immediately replied, Yes, thank you. With that, the boy used his tiny nose to take a deep sniff of the peach's fragrant aroma. While eating, he asked, But why do you look so lifeless? Is something wrong?
Layla hesitated, saying, Well, the Duke and his friends keep going bird hunting. He still didn't understand what she meant. So what? Layla said, They kill birds for sport. She expected someone to agree with her, but to her surprise, the boy shared the common view. That's just what hunting is. Layla turned to him, her eyes filled with sadness, and asked, Are you like that too? The boy started, vehemently denying it. No, not me, I wouldn't. They're so pitiful. Animals feel pain and sadness too. Naive Layla believed her friend's lies. She thought, I thought he was an oddball, but it turns out he's a good person after all. Seeing this, she offered him the remaining half of a large peach and asked, Do you want some more peach? He couldn't suppress his craving either, and quickly replied, Yes, this peach is so juicy and sweet. Layla smiled and confided, That's right, I picked this one in the forest. As they were chatting happily, the boy's mother called out, Kyle, time to come home. He quickly stood up and said goodbye to his new friend.
I have to go now. Kyle, what's your name? Layla also stood up, shaking his hand as a greeting. I'm Layla Ruellen. Kyle said with a radiant smile, Layla Ruellen, it was nice meeting you. See you again. After saying that, he waved goodbye to Layla and hurried away. Layla stood watching his retreating back, wondering to herself, will we meet again? To her surprise, at that very moment, Kyle spoke up. Layla, next time I'll bring some delicious food. Layla also smiled and waved goodbye to him, but a faint sadness lingered in her heart, unsure if she would still be there by then.
It's better to know and say nothing. Upon meeting Kyle, his mother curiously asked, "Kyle, who was that girl?" Kyle gleefully explained, "She lives with her uncle, the gardener. She's the same age as me, Mom." The mother gently placed a hand on her son's shoulder, then secretly turned her head to look at the girl Kyle had just met. Is that so? Finally, Uncle Bill had finished his work. He stood calling up, "Layla, come down quickly." Hearing the call, Layla quickly gathered her belongings and ran down to Uncle Biller. "You're done with work, Uncle?" He also carefully reminded the little girl, "Take your time, don't fall." As they walked, Uncle Biller asked, "Are you hungry?" The little girl politely replied, "No, I ate peaches earlier. I met a boy earlier, he was my age." While they were chatting happily, Layla paused when she saw someone passing by. It turned out to be the Duke and his friends. "You're really good. How do you hit every shot?" "Indeed, it's amazing you can hit such a tiny bird." Martius also soon recognized the little girl he had met in the forest the day before. Seeing him look at her, Layla became much shyer. Uncle Bill quickly bowed to greet the Duke. "Hello, Your Grace." Martius also happily replied, "It's been a while, sir." Uncle Bill turned to introduce Layla. "I apologize for only being able to tell you now. For now, I will let this child stay in Arvis." Although we had asked the old lady for permission, I still think I should speak with the Duke. Layla also quickly bowed her head in respect. Martius's friend pointed at her and asked, "Are you that little girl, the one who lives in the forest?" Layla always hid behind tree trunks, secretly peeking at him, then secretly burying birds. Hearing this, Martius also glanced at Layla. He also recognized her. She was the child sitting in the tree whom he had almost mistakenly shot, thinking she was a bird. Martius accepted Uncle Bill's request. "All right, have it your way, Bill." Uncle Bill immediately bowed his head in thanks to him. After the conversation, the Duke's party departed. As Layla looked up, she saw a dead chicken being carried away by a servant. Witnessing the heartbreaking sight, Layla could only close her eyes, hoping that if her eyes didn't see, her heart wouldn't hurt. Uncle Bill seemed to understand, so he quickly comforted the little girl and said, "Layla, let's go home now." She nodded in response, "Yes, Uncle." At the ladies' tea table, young Lady Claudine sat listlessly as if lacking vitality. Her mother, seeing this, immediately reminded her daughter, "Oh, for goodness sake, Claudine, behave like a lady. Do you even realize where we are, sighing incessantly like that?" Claudine grumbled sullenly, "It's so lonely and boring." Her mother smiled and said, "If that's the case, go play with your brothers and then come back." Claudine slumped back and said, "My brothers treat me like I'm invisible, and besides, they only talk about things I don't understand." Martius's mother was also present. Stroking a puppy, she spoke up, "Indeed, it is quite dull here, because there are no friends her age." Hearing this, Claudine immediately turned to her mother and said, "See, that lady understands me perfectly." Her mother frowned, subtly signaling her daughter to be more discreet. Claudine then sprang to her feet and asked, "I've been curious this whole time. Who is that child over there? They seem to be my age. May I play with them?" The lady then turned her head to look in the direction Claudine was pointing. Let me see. Isn't that the orphan from abroad? I'm not sure she can be a playmate for you." Claudine replied with a smile, "It's all right, madam. It's more interesting than playing with dogs anyway." Claudine's mother flushed with anger. "That's enough." Hearing this, the madam merely smiled, then rang the bell beside her to summon a servant. "Bring that child here. I mean, the child the gardener is raising." The maid, having received the order, hurried out to call Mr. Bill. He turned his head and asked, "What's the matter?" She relayed the madam's request. "The madam told me to bring Layla over." Uncle Bill felt a little worried. "The madam? Why all of a sudden?" She said, "Miss Brant said she wants to play with Layla." Uncle Bill turned to look at Miss Claudine. Play with her? Why would a noble young lady who lacks nothing want to play with Layla? This was the madam's order, so it couldn't be refused. Seeing Uncle Bill seemed worried about her, Layla immediately said, "Uncle, I'll go see the madam and then come back." He had no other choice but to sigh and agree. The maid led Layla to meet everyone. "I've brought the child, madam." Everyone's gaze fell on Layla, seeing her up close for the first time. She was indeed very beautiful. Even the madam couldn't help but exclaim in praise, "What a lovely child." "Well, Claudine, do you like her?" Claudine happily replied. He had no other choice but to sigh and agree. The maid led Layla to meet everyone. "I've brought the child, madam." Everyone's gaze fell on Layla, seeing her up close for the first time. She was indeed very beautiful. Even the madam couldn't help but exclaim in praise, "What a lovely child." "Well, Claudine, do you like her?" Claudine happily replied, "Yes, I like her very much. Thank you, madam." Layla stood bewildered, silently wondering, "Like? What does that mean?" Here everyone wore candy-colored clothes, but no one seemed curious about Layla's thoughts. Soon after, the madam called a maid and gave an order. Layla was pulled away by the maid to a place she had never been in her life. The maid bathed Layla in a splendid bathroom and dressed her in a strangely soft white dress. Even though the hands were rough and a bit rude, Layla endured it, because it was mandatory, no matter what the order was.
If she made even the slightest mistake, it could cause Uncle Bill trouble.
After preparations were complete, the strict maid sternly instructed Layla, Lady Claudine is the daughter of Count Brandt, which means you are not allowed to act as you please. Remember that. The room door was finally opened. The maid led Layla to meet Lady Claudine. Lady, I've brought the child. She put on a gracious air and said to Layla, Hello, come over here. What's your name, and how old are you? Layla immediately replied, My name is Layla, lady, and I am 12 years old. Claudine was slightly surprised. Really? I thought you were younger, because you look so small. Layla froze instantly. This was the second time that day she had been told she looked younger than her age. Layla tried to reassure herself, I have to endure this and think of Uncle Bill. Claudine sat down at the piano, cleared her throat, and asked Layla, Do you know how to play the piano? Layla shook her head. No, I don't. This was the first time she had ever seen such a large piano. Children of the wealthy are truly different, aren't they? Claudine began to play a melody for Layla. Do you know this song? She played and sang melodiously. Claudine stopped playing the piano, turned to Layla and asked, Do you know it? Layla honestly replied, No, young lady, this is the first time I've heard it. Claudine changed the subject to making artificial flowers, but Layla still didn't know how. Through games like dice and cards, Layla remained completely clueless. Claudine asked about the last game, Do you know how to play chess? It was still the familiar answer, No, young lady. Claudine sighed, her face utterly disheartened. Suddenly, she uttered 3 words, How pathetic. Layla froze, sitting still as a statue. Claudine stood up and walked straight to the door. Her feet moved lightly, stopping in front of Layla, and said, What an ignorant child. Layla clenched her fists, the careless words hurting her. Claudine didn't care, walked straight to the door, muttering, I thought it would be fun, so what was I so eagerly looking forward to? Before leaving, she didn't forget to leave a scathing remark, no different from a dog. Layla lowered her face, not daring to show any emotion. Claudine left, abandoning Layla in the vast, empty, and desolate room. Layla's mind screamed in bursts. She really wanted to go home, back to Uncle Bill, but for now she still had to wait, because she didn't know if that young lady would come back. Uncle, is that true? As dusk fell, Layla had left that stuffy room. She carefully descended each step of the stairs. The young lady said you could take that dress, and this. The maid blocked her path, handing Layla a gold coin. The girl didn't understand, staring intently at the coin in the maid's hand. The maid took Layla's hand and placed the money in it. Take it. You must be grateful for what your superiors bestow upon you. Understood? With that, she left. Layla looked at the coin in her hand, gently clutching it to her chest. Layla quickened her pace as if wanting to flee this place. Don't think about anything else. Just hurry home. However, after only a few steps, Layla heard a familiar voice call her name. She stopped abruptly, turning her head to look. If not sooner, then now. It was the young lady from earlier, Claudine. Why must it be? Layla clearly heard the 3 people on the other side talking.
Who is that? The gardener's adopted child? At times like these, she truly felt lucky that the Duke wasn't here. Claudine called her without ill intent, only to say goodbye. Be careful, Layla. Layla clenched her hands, bowing to the young lady. I need to get out of here quickly. In such a strange and peculiar place, Layla ran without looking back, wanting to leave this place as quickly as possible. Uncle is waiting for me too. Suddenly, her oversized shoe slipped off. Layla lost her balance and fell forward. Layla was in pain, trembling all over. Her gold coin also slipped from her hand and rolled away. Following its momentum, it rolled once, vibrating a few times. Just as it was about to settle, a pair of feet stepped on it. Seeing such shiny leather shoes, Layla somewhat guessed who was standing in front of her. The leather shoes and gray trousers. Layla looked up to confirm it was none other than the Duke. Looking into his eyes only made Layla's mood worse. The Duke's frequent singing made Layla feel her own insignificant existence here. Layla bowed to him.
The little girl briefly saw the Duke's full red lips curl into a smirk. Looking down at Layla's bleeding feet, she became aware of a truth that miraculously made the pain in her body vanish. Layla's eyes darted down to the solitary gold coin lying on the ground. Duke Herhard also looked down. Lady Claudine's earlier scolding words echoed in her ears, the phrase, no different from a dog, piercing deep into her heart. She reached out and picked up the coin. Layla clutched the coin tightly, carefully stood up, bowed to the Duke, and then ran off without looking back. Her heart remained silent from beginning to end, not uttering a single word. Throughout her journey back, Layla's every step felt heavy, as if something was burgeoning from the depths of her heart, choking her up to her throat. Crossing the forest path, seeing the warm light emanating from the house, Layla finally realized what it was. In the distant silhouette, Uncle Bill had been standing at the door, waiting for Layla for who knew how long. The moment she saw him, the tears Layla had suppressed for so long suddenly burst forth. Sadness still lingered. Even though it was a normal morning like any other day, Uncle Bill still knocked on Layla's door. Aren't you going into the forest today?
Layla replied with a smile, "I'm planning to stay home today, Uncle." Bill nodded. "I see." He closed the door, letting out a long sigh. It had been 2 days since she met Miss Claudine, and Layla had only locked herself in her room, making Bill extremely worried. He walked distractedly down the hallway, went to the kitchen to get a glass of water for himself, then sat down at the table, observing the quiet atmosphere in the house. Bill couldn't help but feel troubled, wondering if the house was always this quiet. He frowned, pondering many things. At mealtime, Layla suddenly handed Bill a gold coin. "I have this for you, Uncle. Miss Claudine gave it to me." Bill was surprised, and it suddenly dawned on him. Now I understand why she was so sad after returning from the mansion. Bill put the bowl of salad down on the table and asked Layla, "Was it that young noblewoman?" "Yes." "But why are you giving this coin to me?" Layla immediately explained.
This was probably a large sum of money, so no matter how unpleasant it was, she couldn't just throw it away. The image of her bowing at the Duke's feet resurfaced in her memory. Layla pushed that thought aside, smiled, and continued. "I've thought a lot about it and felt it wasn't good, but if it can help me repay you in any way, I want to give it to you." Biller said nothing, only recalling the events of that day. From the moment he saw Layla return home in a disheveled state, as if she were running from someone, he guessed the girl had been hurt at the mansion. Although he pretended not to know, fearing it would make her cry, Biller still blamed himself. Damn it. Then he told Layla, "That's money you earned, so keep it." Layla was surprised. "Money I earned myself?" Biller clearly told Layla, "Yes, this is money you earned after dealing with a bored nobleman. It's quite similar to the work I do, and you did very well, so you can proudly accept it." Biller proudly encouraged his granddaughter and even picked up a large piece of meat for her as a reward. Encouraged by her uncle, Layla's mood also brightened.
"Indeed," Biller nodded, continuing with some encouraging words. "That's right. Congratulations on stepping into adulthood, Layla." Layla gazed at the gold coin in her hand, her spirits lifting for a moment. However, something still troubled her. "But Uncle, I'm still little." Biller immediately dismissed his niece's thought. "Being able to earn a living by your own strength, that's what it means to be an adult. Layla, you've done well. Even if it's just one gold coin at a time, there are still many adults in this world who can't earn that much." Biller immediately placed a huge plate of food in front of Layla, making her jaw drop in astonishment. A start like this is already a success. Because you've had a good start, you'll also become a wonderful adult later on. Uncle Biller's wonderful words of encouragement quickly lifted Layla's sagging spirits. Biller looked at the plate of food and reminded her, "For the past few days, you've been eating like a bird, so eat this, remember? I like children who eat heartily like cows." Layla nodded, immediately picking up the plate and enjoying the meal. The little girl didn't forget to ask, "Uncle, if I eat well, will I grow tall?" Biller nodded. "Probably. Why? Did someone say you're small?" Layla pouted. "No, it's not that, but I seem to look like a small child." Biller stifled a laugh, because she really was a child. He had just called her an adult, and now he was already contradicting himself. Biller stood up and offered to get some apple juice. Layla immediately agreed. Once Biller returned, Layla spoke up and asked, "Oh, right, Uncle. If this is the money I earned, I can use it freely, right?" Biller nodded and immediately asked, "Of course. What do you want to do?" Layla said, "I want to buy a notebook. My old one is all used up." Biller, of course, agreed. Layla also wanted a set of colored pencils. Biller didn't object either. Suddenly, Layla asked Biller, "Don't you need to buy anything, Uncle?" Biller was a little surprised, and a smile spread across his face. "Something for me?" "Yes." Biller smirked, looking at Layla with skeptical eyes. "Can I believe that? What if I say I want something expensive?" Layla excitedly replied, "If that's the case, I'll try to earn a lot of money, save it up, and then buy it for you."
Bill laughed heartily with satisfaction, clinking glasses with Layla. "I'll wait and see." Bill glanced at his niece before him, pride evident on his face. She truly was a smart and lovely child, with a small, slender figure and delicate features. She would surely grow up to be a beautiful lady. But that wasn't necessarily a good thing. In their difficult circumstances, beauty was nothing short of poison. Without protection, she would easily fall into danger. Bill was already getting a headache, so he planned to find a trustworthy place to entrust her. But what would happen if he couldn't find such a place? Damn this terrifying world, these wretched people. Although his heart was heavy with worries, Bill still tried to be as cheerful as possible when talking to Layla. He asked if she wanted another drink, and Layla immediately agreed. Yet Bill still felt a little worried. If this continues, will she grow up to be an alcoholic? No, it's just temporary. Temporary. Days like these continued to pass. After a long period of contemplation, Bill had found clarity. Layla bid Bill farewell before leaving. "I'll be back," Bill nodded, reminding her, "Remember to be back before sunset." Layla nodded and leisurely walked away. One day, that adorable troublemaker unexpectedly appeared in his life. As Layla grew up, the perception of her also evolved. Her new clothes gradually became too small, and her skin grew increasingly fair.
The room, once a temporary storage room, was now as soft and inviting as a lady's chamber. The image of the child running on the path grew increasingly vivid. Before he knew it, Layla had become like the roses he tended, a beautiful and vibrant 18-year-old lady. Layla picked enough strawberries to fill the basket she carried, then took it back home. "Uncle, you're home early today?" Bill was already waiting in front of the house, smiling at Layla. In response, the beautiful Layla, who was still in Arvest with Bill Lemmer, gave him a radiant smile. "Uncle, look at this." Layla excitedly showed Bill a basket overflowing with strawberries. "What's that?" Layla excitedly replied, "Wild strawberries, Uncle. I harvested so many. Tomorrow, pick more, and then we'll make jam." Biller looked at the packed basket and asked playfully, "All this? Are you planning to sell jam?" Layla nodded. "That's not a bad idea." Biller took out a few ripe red peaches. "I have these peaches. Do you want some?" "Yes, please, give me some." Biller split a peach in half and gave one half to Layla. The two ate while admiring nature. It's summer now, so the peaches are perfectly ripe. The dazzling sunlight filtered through the layers of leaves, and birds in the trees chirped away. Layla intently watched them, feeling an unusual sense of peace rise within her. That's right, summer is here again. And so night fell. Layla sat at her study desk, her eyes blurred from reading for a long time. Layla tiredly rubbed her aching eyes. "This is serious. Exams are coming up, but my eyesight seems to be getting worse lately. If I save a little more, I can buy glasses." Layla's mind immediately turned to business. 20 jars of strawberry jam? No, it has to be 30 jars. An idea suddenly flashed in her mind. What if I make wild strawberry jam too? All of them together would earn a good amount of money.
So tomorrow, I'll definitely go early to pick lots of wild strawberries. Thinking of that, Layla's spirits immediately lifted again. Suddenly, Layla's door opened, and Uncle Bill poked his head in, asking worriedly, "Layla, it's late. Why aren't you asleep yet?" Layla quickly replied, "Yes, I was planning to study a bit more before going to bed." Bill couldn't help but praise her diligence, and carefully reminded her, "Remember to sleep early, don't overdo it." Layla nodded and wished Bill good night. Bill left the room, gently closing the door behind him. Bill and Layla were overjoyed. He didn't forget to tell her, "There's nothing to worry about, Layla. Let's go." Then Uncle Bill gradually led her down the path of knowledge. Layla learned little by little about the unfamiliar world out there. Every day, she learned new things and always felt happy when her curiosity was satisfied. Every evening, Layla would sit in the living room with Bill, showing off what she had learned that day. In response, she would always receive a familiar look and a remark, "Layla, you will become a wonderful adult someday." This was Layla's favorite saying. Every time she heard it, her eyes would sparkle even more. That saying was like a magic spell. Some days I would imagine my adult self and then drift off to sleep. I want to show everyone the wonderful adult I will become, just like Uncle said. That would be the first repayment I could make. To achieve that, I must do well in this exam, and then there will be a happy summer vacation. Thinking of this, Layla's determination surged even more. However, she suddenly remembered something. Summer was coming back soon. The Duke, who was fond of singing, graduated from the Royal Military Academy following his family's tradition. He was appointed an army officer and had to serve on a foreign front for 2 consecutive summers. This year, he was absent from Arvis, but would return this summer, which was also when gunshots would ring out in the forest again after many years. That was precisely why Layla was noticeably sadder. At Gilly's Girls Academy, Layla and her close friends were discussing their plans for the summer holiday. When asked, Layla simply brushed it off, saying they would figure it out later. Suddenly, the 3 of them saw a familiar figure, a tall, handsome young man tilting his head, looking for someone. "Layla, look, he's here again." The young man saw Layla and cheerfully waved. From such a distance, Layla naturally couldn't see clearly, so she squinted to look. It was Kyle, happily calling her name. The sight of a young man, especially a handsome one, at a girls' school quickly drew all eyes to Kyle. Layla recognized him, her eyes immediately lit up, and she quickly said goodbye to her friends and left. "Girls, I'm going ahead. See you tomorrow." "I'm heading off now. Bye." Layla headed straight for Kyle, unable to help but wonder, "Why are you here? Wouldn't it have been more convenient to come to my house?" Kyle calmly replied, "It's on the way anyway." But Layla understood Kyle. Despite what she had said, he still skipped his tennis club practice to go home with her. This greatly annoyed the club members. They often teased Kyle. "Why isn't Kyle here? He's not off to see that girl again, is he?" Kyle blushed, quickly fanning himself with his hand, because to meet Layla as soon as possible, he had to run like the wind to get there. He asked, "On the way back, there's that vanilla ice cream shop you like. Do you want some ice cream?" Layla immediately nodded in agreement. Kyle always wanted to make the most of every moment with Layla, so how could he just focus on tennis practice? As the two walked and ate ice cream, Layla suddenly suggested, "I have a book I need to read. Let's stop by the bookstore later." Layla continued eating her half-finished ice cream. Every one of her actions was within Kyle's sight. Meanwhile, the people at the club were shouting loudly, wanting to remove his name from the club altogether. However, tomorrow's worries were for tomorrow. Kyle didn't mind at all. At the bookstore on the street, Kyle looked around while Layla focused only on what she wanted. Kyle glanced at the open page of the book in Layla's hands and asked, "Is this the book you want to read?" Layla nodded, admitting, "Yes, the migratory birds have returned. I plan to record which species of birds will return this holiday."
That's right, you've always liked birds. Kyle stole a glance at Layla, her delicate face, petite figure, and intelligence. Kyle's eyes were full of affection. He thought to himself, can I confess my feelings today? Layla noticed a gaze fixed on her and looked up at Kyle. He didn't say a word, just smiled faintly. Kyle thought to himself, I really like you. Seeing Kyle staring at her without speaking, Layla, curious, spoke first. Kyle, is there something you want to tell me? Kyle, flustered, turned his face away. Oh no, he quickly changed the subject. Are you done choosing? Aren't you going to look at any other books?
Layla nodded and replied, yeah, just buying this book is enough. Let's go home now. Kyle followed behind, telling himself, not yet. It's not time yet. I'm not sure about Layla's feelings, so if I confess hastily, our long-standing friendship will become awkward, and I don't want that. Of course, Layla is getting more and more beautiful, making it hard for me to resist, but I'm still trying to be patient so I can continue to see that smile. Honestly, I even wonder if we really need to be lovers. We've known each other for a very long time. Wouldn't it be better to just become husband and wife? Now that it's this peaceful, we'll surely be a loving couple later on. Layla talked about her studies. Meanwhile, her friend Kyle was still lost in thought, far off in the distant future. Marriage? Getting married right after graduating from university sounds perfect, doesn't it? Kyle closed his eyes, beginning to imagine what Layla would look like in a wedding dress. Perhaps there was no bride in this world as beautiful as Layla, Kyle Edmund's wife. Just thinking about that made Kyle's eyes crinkle in a smile, his face flush red, and his eyes sparkle with delight.
At this very moment, Layla turned her head to look at Kyle again. Why are you smiling? Layla's sudden question left Kyle momentarily speechless. Layla added something else that made Kyle freeze. Oh, is my failing geometry that funny? Kyle replied, it's true, you were always good at that subject, so it's understandable you wouldn't understand. Layla immediately hopped onto her bicycle and rode off, leaving Kyle running frantically behind her, trying to explain. Wait a minute, Layla, that's not it. I was thinking about something else. Layla didn't listen to his explanation and just pedaled even faster, making Kyle chase after her, completely out of breath. Hey, wait a minute. Finally, Kyle managed to grab the back of her bicycle. Relieved, he said, let's go together. They continued walking when Kyle suddenly brought up a topic. Oh, have you heard the news? What news? Layla asked back. I heard that Duke Herhard is coming back soon. It's been almost 2 years, hasn't it? Layla, who had been cheerful, suddenly had her expression darken, and a hint of sadness appeared on her face. Kyle didn't notice that and continued blithely. I heard that recently all the servants in the mansion are in a commotion. Aren't you interested? At the mention of the Duke, painful memories resurfaced once again. Layla softly said, I don't want to see him. Especially since that day, the day Layla knelt at Herhard's feet, the gold coins had always been a persistent pain in her heart. Although Lady Claudine was the one who called her to the mansion, left her there, and gave her the money, the person who made her feel utterly miserable was none other than the Duke. That incident left a different kind of wound compared to the contempt and oppression she had endured at her relative's house when she was young. Every time she saw the Duke, she was reminded of that day. She had tried to avoid him in every possible way. Even when Lady Claudine visited the mansion and called for her, she and the Duke only briefly passed each other. Even when the maid handed Layla the money, she never once looked up, always trying to keep her head bowed as low as possible to avoid seeing him. Layla truly hated him. That memory was a wound she wanted to forget, but he kept bringing it back. Layla bowed her head, her eyes filled with infinite sadness. Suddenly, Kyle blocked her carriage and asked, Layla, can I become an officer too? Layla was surprised. An officer? Kyle immediately boasted. To become an officer like Duke Herhard and win a medal as a sharpshooter who hits every target when dealing with evil enemies. Pretty cool, right? Kyle flashed a sly smile, but Layla immediately cut him off. Kyle, have you forgotten? You couldn't even kill a chicken. Layla's cold water doused Kyle's dream, bringing him back to reality and making him embarrassed. Ugh, why bring that up? This story goes back to last year. One fine day, after Kyle had been coming to Layla's house every day, Uncle Biller lost his temper. Kyle Edmund, why on earth do you keep sneaking into my house? Uncle Biller grabbed Kyle by the collar, shaking him vigorously and scolding him. Besides, why does a rich young master like you insist on eating here instead of at home? This has happened too many times. No, from now on, you're not allowed to come to my house anymore. Kyle was more panicked than ever at being forbidden. Internally, he screamed, No way, Uncle. Only here can I be with Layla. At least I need an excuse to study together. But outwardly, he had to say something different. Uncle, I'll pay for the meals, and you can order me to do anything. Biller frowned. Since he's offering so sincerely, I might as well agree. All right then, come on over.
Bill led Kyle into the chicken coop. His first task was to prepare ingredients for dinner. Kyle was thrashed by a chicken, a beating he'd never forget. Afterwards, Uncle Bill scolded him. This kid can't even catch a chicken. He's truly a useless larva of the Edmund family. Kyle froze, unable to cry out. He was so devastated that Layla had to take him aside to comfort him. From then on, the name useless larva of the Edmund family haunted Kyle. He told Layla,
You know, ever since that day, he hasn't called me by my name anymore. With so many meaningful names, why larva? Layla burst out laughing, teasing Kyle. The gentle larva. Kyle, feeling helpless, said, "Even you?" Layla explained, "I value you because you are who you are. You're messing with me, right?" Layla became serious again. "No, it's true. I hope these hands can save people's lives instead of holding a gun like that. Wouldn't that be better?" Kyle, moved, replied, "Of course, I'll become a doctor. But I still won't forget my endless passion for winning medals. In that case, I'll become a military doctor."
Do military medics receive medals? Layla chimed in. Of course they do. It's a noble job, saving lives, right? Despite hearing this, Kyle remained skeptical about life. Is that so? Suddenly, a car appeared in their sight. Kyle and Layla deliberately moved aside to make way for it. The car slowly glided past them. Inside the car, a familiar figure, Layla's nemesis, had truly returned. It was the singing Duke. Kyle and Layla didn't even know if he had truly seen them. The car then drove away from them. Kyle and Layla began to talk. Was that Lady Nomar? Layla immediately denied it. No, it couldn't have been her. I heard she doesn't like cars. Kyle was still wondering about the modern car, a combination of technology and style. Layla didn't understand what her friend was saying. Kyle suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, that's right. What's wrong?" Kyle rummaged through his school bag and realized he had forgotten something for Layla. "The geometry notebook I was going to show you today. I left it at home." Layla squinted, trying to confirm. "Really?" Kyle honestly replied.
"Oh, I left it on my study desk." Layla spun around 180 degrees and carefully instructed, "Then I'll go home and wait first. Remember to come on time for dinner and definitely bring it for me." Kyle called after her, "Hey, are you waiting for me or the notebook?" Layla replied coldly, "The notebook is a given." The truth hurt, making Kyle truly sad. "Anyway, I'll go home really quickly and then come over." Layla called back, "You can take your time. Dinner takes time to cook anyway." Kyle sighed, "I know. See you later." Layla watched her best friend's retreating figure, and a smile naturally bloomed on her face. She continued cycling, lost in thought. What should I do tonight? Layla rode leisurely down the sun-drenched road, a sense of calm before the storm. Gerhard looked at the dazzling sunlight through the window. After a moment's thought, he decided to call out, "Hessen." The man turned around. "Yes, Your Grace." Gerhard suggested stopping the car, which startled Hessen, who feared he had misheard and had to ask again. "You mean right here?" Gerhard looked at the old man and replied firmly, "That's right. I'll walk a bit."
The car screeched to a halt. After letting the Duke out of the car, Hessen continued, "Then I'll wait nearby." Marcius refused. "No need. I'll walk." The Duke's strange attitude made Hessen break out in the cold sweat. What's going on? He returned a week earlier than expected, which already caused a lot of trouble for the servants at the mansion. Now he suddenly wants to walk alone. Hessen was about to say something more, but the Duke cut him off. "No, I'll see you at the mansion later." Since his master had spoken, Hessen didn't know what else to do. "Yes, I understand, Duke." Under the dazzling sunlight filtering through the shady trees, Marcius took off his hat and strolled leisurely down the road. He closed his eyes, enjoying the fresh air he hadn't experienced in a long time. Suddenly, a memory flooded Marcius's mind. His mother had suggested to him, "Marcius, will you get engaged this summer?" Marcius agreed immediately. Now was the time to marry and produce an heir. She offered to help him find a suitable young lady from a good family. "I believe Lady Claudine is the most suitable person to be the next Duchess." Marcius accepted her proposal, as Claudine von Brandt was indeed a young lady of suitable lineage and circumstances. Seeing her son had agreed to the arrangement, Gerhard's mother was extremely pleased. "Then I will arrange for Lady Brandt to sit next to you at the welcome-back ceremony in Arvis." Gerhard did not refuse, accepting wholeheartedly. That's just how life was. Even without desire or longing, everything was perfectly prepared. This perfect life was so obvious it felt boring. A perfect person in this life, from a perfect student to a perfect officer. Now I would marry a perfect woman and become a perfect father as Duke Gerhard, helping the family prosper sustainably, just as my grandfather and father had done. Just then, a figure on a bicycle approached. Layla was leisurely riding her bicycle, her face beaming with joy. She glided past the Duke like a gust of wind. Layla felt the person was somewhat familiar, so she turned her head to look. The figure before her shocked her profoundly. Duke Gerhard. Her handlebars immediately wobbled. Layla shrieked and tumbled to the ground. The bicycle, following its momentum, also lay sprawled on the ground, fortunately not falling on her.
Layla and her belongings were scattered everywhere. Gerhard looked at the girl in front of him, suddenly feeling as if he had met her somewhere before. Her characteristic golden hair reminded him of the child the gardener had once asked to stay, little Layla Relowin, who had wandered all day in the forest to bury dead birds. Still alive in this territory? Layla looked up at Gerhard. His eyes were also focused on her. Layla sprang to her feet, respectfully apologizing to the Duke. Layla's gaze fell upon something on the ground. Only then did she realize that all her books and papers had been scattered everywhere. Layla sat down and picked them up one by one. Her every move was observed by Gerhard. After a moment of hesitation, he decided to speak. "Are you Layla Relowin?" Hearing her name, Layla froze, but still kept her head down, picking up books. I apologize, Duke. Her heart was somewhat angry. Just as Layla reached for the last remaining ballpoint pen, her heart coldly stepped on it. Layla froze. She trembled as she tried to pull the pen towards herself, but it was useless. Her heart coldly commanded, "Layla Relowin, I'm calling you." Layla clenched her hands, boldly replying, "Yes, Your Grace, please speak. I'm listening." Her heart's eyes immediately softened. He looked at Layla for a few seconds, then withdrew his foot so she could retrieve the object beneath it. Her heart said nothing, quickly brushing past Layla, which slightly shocked her. Why didn't he say anything? The hand holding the pen trembled. Layla spun around to look at her heart's retreating back, thinking irritably to herself, then why did he do that? Do people know that the praised perfect Duke has such behavior? Her heart put his officer's hat back on and calmly walked forward. After gathering her belongings, Layla also quietly led her bicycle behind him. The wheels rolled on the road. Her aching legs from the jarring fall just now were still trembling with every step. However, the anxiety in Layla's heart overshadowed everything. Observing his leisurely pace, Layla guessed that he intended to walk from here to the mansion. She thought to herself, with such long legs, he would surely walk faster. Layla also couldn't be disrespectful and overtake him. The sunlight still filtered through the tree canopies. Suddenly, her heart.
Layla quickly stopped as well. She suddenly looked towards Herhard. He stared steadily at Layla with a judging gaze. As time passed, the child had grown, no longer a little girl, but a woman, Layla Rewellen. Roses were the national flower and the pride of Berg Manor, blooming vibrantly in full color. Every summer, the Duke would return to his domain, making the servants busier than ever. Each time he returned, the manor always welcomed many guests who came to attend various parties or lessons, their hard work a testament to the master's prestige. Count Brandt was the second most prestigious noble in Bach, second only to the Herhard family. They were among the esteemed guests who required special reception. When they arrived, Duke Herhard had already come out to the gate to greet them. "Please come in." Count Brandt politely shook his hand. "It's been a long time, Duke Herhard and Duchess." Officially, the Brandt family was invited to the manor to celebrate the arrival of summer, but the Count's only daughter, Claudine, was the true reason for their visit to Arvis. That was something everyone knew. Duke Herhard also looked up to greet her arrival. Claudine gently stepped out of the carriage. She smiled at the person assisting her. "Hello, Duke Herhard." The Duke nodded in response. "Hello, Lady Brandt." Prior to the engagement announcement, the two families needed to negotiate to foster mutual friendship. Claudine, understanding this better than anyone, always presented herself in the most formal and impeccable attire. The conservatory was always so beautiful. Lady Herhard must have brought paradise itself in here. Lady Herhard was naturally very pleased with her future daughter-in-law. She said, "I have cared for it meticulously for a long time. I very much hope to pass it on to someone who understands its value." Her enthusiasm made the Brandt family feel valued. After a while of conversation, Lady Herhard wanted the young couple to spend more time alone together. She said, "Martius, please take Lady Claudine to tour the Arvis Garden. We still have matters to discuss here." The Brandt family also concurred with the lady. Therefore, Martius quickly stood up, walked over to Lady Claudine, and offered his hand. "Let's go, my lady." Claudine gracefully placed her hand in Martius's. Suddenly, another small hand came to his mind, but no expression showed on his face. Claudine replied, "Yes, Your Grace." The girl she once was had now become a perfect lady. Martius escorted Claudine with the same solemnity as their first meeting. There was nothing new about it. Whether intimate or distant, they had known each other for a long time and understood each other well. For the handsome Duke Martius and Lady Claudine of House Brandt were aristocrats through and through. Their choice of each other in this political marriage was the biggest and clearest reason. As they strolled through the Arvis Garden, small birds constantly landed near Claudine, making her exclaim, "The birds here are truly beautiful. I'm surprised they follow people so readily. I wonder if there's a secret to it." Martius nodded, instructing the gardener to explain. "They are canaries, my lady." Claudine gently stroked the small bird in her hand. "Birds' wings, don't they feel pain?" The gardener shook his head and replied, "No, because I only trim their feathers." The young lady asked curiously, "Doesn't it hurt?" "Let me show you." Claudine tilted her head and asked Martius, "Is that all right, Duke?" Martius completely indulged her. "Do as the young lady wishes." The servants quickly prepared the tools. The gardener went to a large cage nearby, holding a small yellow bird in his hand. Its small size caught Martius's eye. He asked, "What kind of bird is this?" The gardener introduced, "Sir, this is a canary. They sing beautifully." The small bird was secured, its eyes covered with a cloth. The gardener spread one of its wings with one hand, holding scissors in the other. Despite its limited contact with humans, its wariness remained very high. If we trim both its wings, making it unable to fly far or escape, they will become more docile. Claudine asked curiously, "Does it really have to be trimmed?" As always, the gardener decisively snipped the scissors. Birds that can fly freely are difficult for humans to tame. Such feather trimming also helps prevent them from getting lost or flying to dangerous places. They won't get hurt, so this is also good for them. Very quickly, the bird's feather trimming was complete. From the gardener's hand, it angrily flapped its wings and struggled, but it hadn't flown far before landing back on the table. The bird flapped its wings again, wanting to fly away, then quickly landed on the ground. The small canary tilted its head, looking at the large shoes in front of it. Martius gently reached out and cupped it in his hands. The small bird immediately chirped loudly and tried to struggle free from his palm. The gardener quickly stepped forward to take the small bird. "Good heavens, sir, it cannot be tamed right away. It needs more time to get accustomed." The gardener held the lively bird up in front of Claudine. "Would you like to tame it, young lady?" But she smiled and declined. "I've seen enough. Thank you for answering my questions." Then she turned to Martius. "Let's go back now, Duke," she said. The Duke paused for a moment, looking at her outstretched hand, then politely took her hand. The image of her small hand holding a pen unexpectedly flashed in his mind.
But Martius chose to disregard it and turned his back, walking with Claudine. Midway, he suddenly ordered the gardener, "Bring it to my bedroom." The gardener looked at Martius, not quite understanding, and asked, "Pardon, sir?" The Duke replied with a calm expression, "The bird, my canary." He was referring to the small bird still in the gardener's hands. On a beautiful sunny day, there was a little girl who shone no less brightly than the sun today. This morning, Layla, while helping to arrange flowers for the Herhard estate, chatted a little with the maids. "Thank you, Layla. That must be quite heavy, isn't it?" "It's not heavy, but it seems someone has arrived at the estate." The maid nodded. "The Brandt family will be arriving soon." Layla let out an "ah" and thought to herself, "So Lady Claudine is also coming this year." "That's right, since the Duke has returned to the estate." The maid leaned in and whispered into Layla's ear, "Hey, did you know? The Duke and Lady Brandt are going to get engaged." Layla repeated, utterly surprised. "Engaged?" The maid then clarified, "That's right."
Before, she used to wonder who the perfect bride for our Duke would be. Finally, the Countess's visits bore fruit. After that conversation, Layla, as usual, returned to her berry orchard. When the Duke returned, the forest remained quiet, perhaps because he was busy with his engagement. So today had to end. Before the Duke took over the forest, Layla quickly picked the red berries from the bushes. Before Lady Claudine called for her more frequently, she poured all the berries into the large satchel she carried. On the same day, the Duke's carriage also arrived at Nation. The butler came out to the carriage to greet him, saying, "I have prepared everything necessary at your villa. This afternoon we have a meeting with the directors, so the carriage will pick you up around noon." Duke Martius slowly stepped out of the carriage and nodded, indicating he had heard clearly. This was a place with a panoramic view of the Schulter River and Avajor Forest. Martius loved unique styles, so he had renovated the boathouse into his private villa, as he and his mother rarely walked to the riverbank. The Duke's long, slender legs stepped.
He slowly took off his heavy vest. This villa was his own world. When he had no schedule, he often stayed here, idly gazing at the forest and river scenery, or reading books. Sometimes he even took a nap here. The villa was a place where he could comfortably do anything. Today was no different. After resting and reading on the sofa, Martius put down his book and went to change. What he liked most at such times was to bathe in the river. Martius placed his bathrobe on the chair, then seriously warmed up his entire body. Then he took a running start and plunged into the water, sparkling in the sun. The moment he immersed himself in the river, he felt the sky amidst the lush green trees, the rustling of leaves in the wind, and the chirping of birds. The noisy engagement talk that people had been mentioning for the past few days gradually faded away amidst the tranquil river. The marriage alliance negotiations between the Herhard and Brandt families proceeded smoothly as expected. The engagement period was 1 year. This summer, their engagement would be officially announced. Now he had sufficient status to become Duke Herhard without needing to hold the officer position for too long.
He had served in the Guard for 2 years before being discharged. After getting married, he planned to focus on the family business, and it had been that way ever since. His life flowed smoothly like a calm river, everything going exactly as he wished. But who knew that an unexpected turn of events would occur? That day, Layla was also sitting on an apple tree by the river, reading a newspaper. She was stunned to see Duke Martius and dropped the newspaper in her hand. Coincidentally, they met again under such unexpected circumstances. It was that very newspaper that had stunned her, and it was also at that moment that the Duke noticed her. Right by the river, there was a young woman sitting high up in a tree, staring at him. Layla even thought she was mistaken, so she rubbed her eyes multiple times. When she opened her eyes again, the person bathing naked was still there. What was that? It was a man. But a naked man? Could it be Duke Martius? Layla was startled. Oh my goodness, it really is the Duke. What on earth is he doing out there? Martius ran a hand through his damp hair, pushing it back from his face. His allure was such that even though Layla covered her eyes, she couldn't help but peek through a gap between her fingers.
"No, don't look anymore. Close your eyes." She hadn't expected the Duke to turn and swim towards her. Layla blushed in surprise, then became panicked. "Just keep swimming. Why is he swimming this way? No, he mustn't come here. Oh, for goodness sake, don't come here."
Layla was so terrified she nearly screamed. She quickly climbed down from the branch she was sitting on, then ran away without daring to look back. Midway, she ran into Kyle, who was looking for her. Kyle smiled and called out to her. "Perfect timing. I was just about to look for you. Uncle said you were—" Before he could finish his sentence, Layla crashed into his chest. Kyle caught her. "Layla, are you all right? What happened that made you run so frantically?" She was panting heavily, stammering, unable to speak. Kyle also became anxious because of her. "What's wrong? Did something happen in the forest?" "What, did you encounter a wild animal in the forest?" Amidst Kyle's questioning, she recalled the Duke's image, so fresh in her mind. Layla was so embarrassed she felt like fainting. "No, but I'd rather have encountered a wild animal."
Kyle anxiously shook Layla. "Hey, snap out of it, Layla. What's wrong with you? It wasn't a gorilla you saw." Layla thought to herself, "No, it was even scarier than that." Kyle tilted his head and looked at her again. "But you said you were going berry picking." It was then that she suddenly remembered the fruits of her labor since morning. "Oh, my wild berries!" Kyle asked again, not knowing why she was acting that way. "If that's the case, shall I go with you to bring them back?" But at his offer, Layla frantically refused. "No, I don't want to." With that, she immediately left without any explanation. At the base of the tree, 2 baskets full of wild berries and newspaper remained untouched. It was clear how hastily their owner had left. Duke Marcius also ambled over. One hand in his pocket, he surveyed the things the girl had just left behind. Marcius sat down to examine them. Wild berries, huh? Was she planning to strip all the wild berries from this mountain? With that, he looked up at the high branch. This was where he had seen Layla. Old memories came flooding back. When he was little, he had often come here to call Layla down. It was the little girl, Layla Rewellen. Marcius's expression softened. He chuckled, wondering if she still enjoyed climbing trees and being mischievous like that. A few days later, Layla went into the city. She came to get a pair of glasses, and the shop owner handed her a pair of round frames to try on. "Can you see clearly with these, dear?" Layla's blue eyes blinked behind the yellow frames. "It feels like a whole new world has opened up." The shop owner nodded in agreement. "That's understandable. Your eyesight is very poor, so you must have been quite inconvenienced all this time." Layla was extremely satisfied with the glasses. Aside from it being a bit inconvenient when reading, it's perfectly fine otherwise. The shop owner pointed to the eye chart for a final check. "Now, try reading this small line of text. Can you read it?" Layla happily replied. Perfectly clear. These glasses were very important to her. "Finally, I've managed to get these glasses through my own efforts. Thank you, everyone. The Arvis wild strawberries. All this time, I didn't mind the heat and stirred wild strawberry jam to earn money." Her glasses now ready, Layla waved to the shop owner and left. "Goodbye." The shop owner warmly bid her farewell. "Come again next time." Yet after such a beautiful sunny day, why do those ugly memories keep coming back to me? What a shame. I just got my glasses today. The Duke, too. Even if it was his territory back then, how could he swim naked in broad daylight? What if someone happened to see him? In any case, I shouldn't loiter near the riverbank until the Duke is gone. Well, it's a shame I can't visit my favorite spot. I absolutely cannot encounter him again. Just then, someone called Layla's name. She stopped, recognizing the familiar voice. Could it be Lady Claudine? Layla turned her head to look. What met her eyes first was none other than Duke Marcius himself, the very person she dreaded encountering. Layla instinctively flinched in fear. Her cheeks slowly flushed red. Just then, Claudine gently emerged from behind him. "Long time no see, Layla." Layla immediately bowed her head low. "Greetings, Your Grace and Lady." She secretly marveled to herself. It hadn't been long since they last met, yet he had already become a lady. Claudine spoke up to greet her. "With those glasses, I almost didn't recognize you. Are you doing well?" Layla replied, "Yes, I am well, my lady." The lady kindly invited Layla. "We are on our way to that hotel over there for tea. Why don't you come along, Layla? It's been a long time since we last met, so please join us for a cup of tea." The unexpected invitation surprised Layla. "Me?" Claudine didn't forget to ask Marcius for his opinion. "Is that all right, Duke?" He also nodded in agreement. So Claudine took charge and led the way. "Follow me." Layla couldn't refuse and followed. "Yes, my lady." Layla thought to herself, "It'll probably only be for a little while. I have an appointment to meet Kyle in the city. Luckily, there's still time." Why on earth would the lady want me to come along? Even though I have nothing to say. Even though I don't understand, I'm not curious about the reason either. Although we are in the same space, my presence feels as if it makes no difference, just like when I was 12 years old. Today, I just need to accept it as it is. After all, Layla finally looked at the person in front of her. Thanks to her glasses, she could see the Duke sitting opposite her more clearly. From a young age, whenever she looked into the Duke's glass-like blue eyes, she had innocently thought they were as clear as a piece of music. But now she felt very awkward. Layla was completely ill at ease. She had just resolved to avoid him, yet here they were, sitting opposite each other. But why was she the only one who felt awkward? Didn't the Duke feel ashamed about what happened that day? Normally, being caught like that by someone else would be embarrassing, right? Thinking back, she seemed to recall hearing that to nobles, commoners were no different from objects. If that were true, it made perfect sense. Who would be ashamed to be naked in front of an object? And no object would be ashamed to see someone else naked.
So now she would just be an object, an inanimate thing. Claudine continued to talk to her. Layla, how is school? Are you enjoying it? Layla bowed her head and replied, yes, young lady. The young lady then asked what she planned to do after graduation. Layla didn't hide anything and shared, I'm taking classes to get certified.
Claudine was surprised to hear her plan. Teaching? A teacher? That's a wonderful idea. It seems to suit you well. Isn't that right, Duke? Layla looked at Martius. He politely nodded in confirmation. It seems something in Layla's heart sank, and Claudine's voice continued to ring out. For this party, I think it should be like this. What do you think about inviting young ladies from various noble families? Amidst the conversation of the young couple, Layla silently clutched her hands placed on her lap, with no room for her to interject. After a while, Layla stood up. Excuse me, Duke and Lady, may I ask to leave first? I have an appointment with a friend shortly. Claudine looked at her gently. Is that so? Then you may go ahead. I was very happy to see you today, Layla. Layla bowed respectfully and replied, then I will take my leave. I wish you both a pleasant time. Having said that, she quickly turned and left. Martius merely glanced at her retreating back for a moment. Then his gaze fell back to Layla's teacup, still full on the table.
The friend Layla was meeting for lunch was Kyle. He laughed loudly when he saw her new glasses. Congratulations on reaching your goal, Ruellen. Layla pushed up her glasses. Stop teasing me. Why have you been looking at me and smiling all this time? Do I look weird with glasses? I'm not quite used to them yet. Kyle playfully lifted the glasses on Layla's nose. Do you know, if you wear glasses, your eyes will look as big as a mouse's. Layla, provoked to anger by his teasing, grabbed his collar. Kyle laughed while begging for mercy. Hey, don't do that. I get it. When you're like this, you're just like Uncle Bill. Come on, let's eat quickly. I'm starving after playing tennis. Kyle handed Layla a bottle of water. Drink this with your meal. At the same time, Duke Martius's carriage slowly stopped by the roadside. Claudine's voice was heard asking if there was a traffic jam, and the coachman reported, yes, young lady, it seems there's a carriage blocking the way ahead. Beside her, Duke Martius was intently looking out the window. He inadvertently spotted a familiar figure. So, she's meeting that boy.
Across the street, Layla and Kyle were joking around while having lunch. This kid was Kyle Ettman, the son of the chief physician. Martius looked at Kyle for a moment longer. Earlier at the cafe, Layla hadn't touched her teacup at all. She just sat still, her hands on her knees, then quietly left. Her expression was restless and uncomfortable, as if she wanted to escape. A few rays of sunlight pierced through the trees lining the street, shining through the car window, making the Duke's eyes light up. In his mind, the image of Layla as a child reappeared. When he was still in the military, Layla had never acted like that, never run away from him to go to that kid. The image of Kyle smiling next to Layla pierced Martius's mind. Was it because she wanted to go to that kid that she left him? Layla's smile when she was with that kid was also very bright, just to be with that boy. In the following days, Layla's presence was noticed by Mrs. Brandt, and she seemed rather displeased. Could that be the child?
Is the orphan child adopted by the gardeners still living here? Holding her embroidery frame, Claudine replied, yes, Mother, that's her. She's beautiful, isn't she, Mother? She gets more beautiful as she grows. The lady frowned, looking at her daughter. Haven't you noticed? Miss Claudine smiled. Of course not. I know she's very beautiful. It's been a while since I last saw her, but Layla is even more beautiful than I imagined. She has a petite figure and delicate features, characteristic of Levita women, mysterious blue eyes and fair skin. That's why I suddenly invited her to come along. That tea party wasn't accidental. I intentionally wanted to bring Layla along with Martius and me. I wonder how the Duke will react when he sees the beautiful child who grew up in his territory. So Claudine deliberately brought the Duke along, and he, just as she expected, was both intrigued and appropriately indifferent, his perfectly restrained demeanor. So Claudine calmly said to the lady, I know what you're worried about, but I choose not to concern myself with such matters.
The lady looked extremely uneasy. It's because you're still young and don't understand men. That's why you're like this. If it were me, Claudine cut the lady off. Does that mean all the beautiful girls in this world must disappear from the Duke's sight? She smiled as she embroidered the fabric in her hands. As you said, I'm still young and don't understand men, but I do understand that a man of status always has a few mistresses. Her words stunned the lady. Heavens, Claudine! Exactly. So even if that were to happen, it wouldn't be surprising at all. He might desire beautiful women, just like father and other men. But a man who behaves properly towards his legitimate wife is fine. It's the one who doesn't know his place with his legitimate wife who has a problem, and Martius clearly falls into the former category. He's not the type to give up his family's reputation for a fleeting desire. There was also another reason why Claudine wasn't worried at all. Although I don't wish for it to happen, if the Duke were to make me his legitimate wife, I'd be more comfortable if it were that girl, the one I already have completely figured out.
So it won't be able to affect your status at all. Her daughter's words left Madame stunned, almost making her fall backward. Heavens, Claudine, what are you saying? You really are. In Claudine's eyes, she was a weak mother who had struggled many times to give birth to her. Madame didn't hear a single word her daughter said. Anyway, it's not good to have a daughter like that near Martius right now. I come here every year, so why am I only seeing that girl now? Claudine knew she was insecure because she couldn't bear an heir, which caused her relationship with father to gradually cool. Then beautiful women appeared, bore sums, and stole father's love, leaving mother to live in constant worry. Although she found her mother truly pitiful, she was also too tired of that pity. Madame impatiently said, "I must talk to Duke Herhard." Claudine then asked her, "Mother, would there be a problem if Duke Herhard took an interest in a beautiful, low-born child? I am the legitimate wife after all." Madame was speechless. "Claudine, you truly know nothing about love."
Her father told Claudine that love can blind people, but she just smiled. Love? Because of love, every day I witness Mother washing her face with tears. Mother's hands never stopped embroidering, so I will absolutely not be like Mother. What I want is not a withered love that is abandoned, but a perfect marriage that can protect my dignity and honor. At the same time, in his mansion, the canary Martius had brought back had been tamed. It no longer struggled like before. Instead, it actively perched on his hand and chirped for a while. Martius slowly stroked the canary's feathers. Then the Duke looked down at the flower garden in front of the mansion, where Layla, with a radiant smile and golden hair, was present. That was what Martius found hard to take his eyes off. A moment later, at Uncle Bill's wooden house, Kyle arrived, calling out loudly, "Layla, I'm here!" However, the house was closed, with no sign of activity. Kyle leaned against the railing, waiting for his friend to return. He mumbled, "It seems she went out to work with Uncle Bill, but it's almost time."
Just wait a little. In the warm sunlight, Kyle happily thought that the future Lady Etman was truly beautiful, even with her glasses on. He recalled when he had cycled her home, Layla had said, "You bought sandwiches earlier, so this time let me buy dessert." Kyle smiled and said, "It's fine. Why do you always have to be so fair?" Wanting to walk home together, Kyle had intentionally not ridden his bike when he went to meet Layla. When he felt Layla's small hand gently grasp the hem of his shirt, Kyle just wanted to shout to her, "You can hold on tighter." At that moment, Layla smiled beautifully and said to him, "Hey Kyle, I'll buy you ice cream." Kyle was overjoyed beyond words, but he still told himself not to rush, to take it slow. He had decided that much. But all his resolutions melted away before Layla. The moment she looked at him with her big, round eyes and handed him the ice cream bar, Kyle's heart pounded as if it would explode, and his whole body flushed hot. Occasionally, Kyle even had dreams that made him feel guilty. More than anything, what bothered Kyle the most was his fear and insecurity.
Even though they sat next to each other and Layla chatted with him about trivial things, like how beautiful the clouds were today, Kyle still feared that one day someone would suddenly appear and take Layla away. If that were to happen, he'd rather just confess his feelings, defying everything. Just then, Layla returned and called his name. Kyle happily turned around, only to see a girl wearing a hat full of flowers waving and calling out, "Kyle!" Immediately, Kyle couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Hey, what's with that tacky hat?" Uncle Bill and Layla were both displeased with his reaction, but Kyle, like a fool, didn't notice the annoyed expressions on their faces. Kyle continued to ask Uncle Bill, "Hello, Uncle, why is there suddenly a giant flower vase here?" Layla was furious, turning to Kyle. "Oh my God, don't tell me you bought that yourself. Where on earth did you pick it up?" "I didn't pick it up. Uncle bought it for me." Kyle shamelessly gave 2 thumbs up in praise. "Oh wow, now that I look closely, it's really beautiful. Uncle's taste is excellent." Finally, Kyle received a bump on the head from Uncle Bill, and then Layla arranged for him to sit down. "Come on, eat." Kyle nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "Yes, I'll eat it all up." Inside, Kyle was crying his eyes out, yet he was still invited to eat. Even though he had spoken out of turn, the food Layla cooked was incredibly delicious. After the meal, Kyle sought out Layla, who was reading on the porch. "Are you still angry?" Layla didn't even look at Kyle, replying coldly, "Yes." Kyle quickly pleaded with her, "I'm sorry, if I had known, I wouldn't have done it." "But why did he suddenly give you a hat?" Layla said it was because she had asked her uncle. Kyle was extremely surprised. "You? You never ask Uncle for anything." Layla held the eyeglasses in her hand and recounted softly. "It was because Uncle seemed sad when I bought expensive glasses myself without saying a word to him." She remembered how upset Uncle Bill had been when he told her. "If your eyesight isn't good, you should have told me first. How could you do it yourself without saying a word to me? Layla, am I not trustworthy?" She shook her head repeatedly. "No, it's not like that. It's just that I've always been indebted to you, so I wanted to try and buy the glasses myself."
From childhood until now, he had never gotten angry with me. At that time, no matter how I explained, his eyes were still very sad. After that day, he and I were very awkward every day. So Layla decided to break the silence and called out, "Uncle." At that moment, I couldn't think of what to do, so I asked him to buy me a beautiful hat. Layla caressed the hat. He bought me this hat. He chose the hat himself, and someone called me unfashionable, didn't they? Kyle was extremely embarrassed. "Oh, you should have said something earlier. I'm not the kind of jerk who would mock a gift like that." Layla scolded him with disdain. Someone immediately scoffed as soon as they saw it. Layla continued,
He said that to him, nothing is as beautiful as flowers, so the one with the most flowers is the most beautiful. A cold uncle went into a women's clothing store by himself and bought me this hat. I know how special that is and how great that affection is. Layla hugged the hat to her chest. To me, this is the most beautiful and lovely hat in the world, so don't tease me about it anymore, okay? Kyle quickly replied, I know. A moment later, the house door.
Uncle Biller put on his jacket and headed out. He looked at Kyle and asked why the kid hadn't gone home yet. Kyle looked at him longingly. The man who loved Layla would have to accept being second, because the number one spot in Layla's heart would always belong to Uncle Biller. Before leaving, Uncle Biller told Layla, I have something to do downtown. She smiled obediently and replied, yes, please go and come back soon, Uncle. Seeing the two of them, Kyle also felt a contagious happiness. It was obvious, and there was no point in being jealous. After that, only Kyle and Layla were left, sitting and reading. Kyle, feeling bored, put his book over his face, his thoughts drifting. She hasn't even looked at me once. I borrowed this book for nothing. Meanwhile, Layla was excitedly focused on her book, munching on a cookie and muttering, who's the culprit? Next page. Kyle subtly opened his eyes and glanced sideways. Did Layla know how beautiful she looked when she was focused on reading? She was also adorable when she chewed her cookie. Kyle decided to sit up and strike up a conversation with her. Hey Layla, have you ever... Just then, Layla heard footsteps approaching. Kyle also looked in that direction. The sound of hooves was slowly approaching them. Both Layla and Kyle stood up to greet him, for the person appearing was Duke Martius. By custom, both had to step down to greet him. Kyle bowed. Greetings, Your Grace. Only Layla was distracted, continuously brushing off cookie crumbs. Her mind was in turmoil. Why appear at this very moment? Kyle gently touched her hand and whispered, Stop, you've brushed it all off. Their intimate gesture was seen by the Duke. The Duke asked, Where is Lem? Layla replied, He just went down to the city center for a moment. Do you need something, Your Grace? The Duke looked at Layla and asked, Does Miss Jewelin do the work of carrying roses? Layla nodded. You mean the roses in the garden, Your Grace? The Duke took her nod as agreement. He left and instructed her, Bring a moderate amount and deliver them to my villa. Layla quickly prepared to get to work. Kyle looked at her with wide eyes. Are you even wearing a new hat to go? He offered to go with her. I can help you with some errands too. Shall we go together? But Layla refused. No, it's nothing. Kyle said that again. I'll be waiting for you at home now. Layla, carrying a small basket, told Kyle to go home. If she knew you were playing here again, Lady Edmund would be angry. Don't get scolded because of me. Go home and study. This time he couldn't say anything more. Kyle watched Layla leave and wondered how strange it was that he had to come here directly that day just for a small errand like delivering roses. No, it was probably just a convenient stop along the way, nothing strange about it. But why do I suddenly feel uneasy? Thinking this, he reassured himself. Oh no, it couldn't be. Why would it be Duke Herhard and not someone else? Why should I worry about a nobleman who's about to get married? He watched Layla wave goodbye to him, his heart stirring again. It seemed he had been too sensitive lately. Why did he keep feeling so uneasy? Kyle murmured Layla's name. At this moment, at Martius's mansion, Layla placed the basket of roses on the table. Duke, I have brought the roses as you instructed. However, Martius coldly said, Bring something else. Layla thought she had misheard. Excuse me? Martius fiddled. Without bothering to look up, said, Don't choose vibrant colors. Do it again. He repeated, Don't choose vibrant colors. Do it again. Martius was being fussy now, disliking the flowers she had just brought in. Or was it just an excuse to prolong Layla's time by his side? Layla lowered her head, accepting the request. Yes, I understand, Your Grace. Stepping outside, the dazzling sunlight coupled with the frustration in her heart made Layla seethe. She tied her hair back. No vibrant colors? But he said moderate was fine. Just as she was angry, there was something on the ground for her to vent her frustration on. Layla kicked the stone with a straight leg, sending it flying far away. Why didn't you just say what colors you wanted from the start? Layla looked back at the magnificent villa. Although she didn't know the exact layout of the mansion, she knew that this riverside villa was the Duke's private space, a place rarely visited by guests or strangers. In such a personal space, he had someone bring flowers. Surely for his fiancée, Lady Claudine, Layla guessed his intention. Layla had chosen bright-colored roses, suitable for Lady Brant's taste, but the outcome was this. The correct conclusion was that everyone's assessment of the Duke was wrong, completely wrong. How could someone who bothered others under the scorching summer sun be a good person? She didn't know what others thought, but as for her, she truly hated the Duke. Despite her bitter hatred, Layla's hands were still incredibly nimble as she picked the flowers. Where would the story between these two lead? After selecting the flowers according to Martius's requirements, Layla struggled internally with how she would face the Duke. All just look him straight in the eye. Just then, the two men who had been discussing matters with Martius in the room came out. Seeing the young girl, one of them spoke up. Layla, you've worked hard. She politely greeted them back. Hello, sir. Where are you all going? The other person immediately replied, We're returning to the mansion. Keep up the good work. This was a private villa. Now that the other two had left, it meant that only the Duke and Layla remained in the villa. Her heart inexplicably pounded. Even though there were no romantic feelings yet, a single man and a single woman being alone together was a bit awkward.
As Layla entered Martius's room, she saw him resting with his eyes closed. Under the sunlight streaming through the window, every feature of his handsome face became even more distinct. Layla observed him slowly. Was he asleep? He looked tired. She wondered if it was because she always saw him impeccably dressed that he now looked like a stranger. So what should I do now? Should I wait here, or just leave it and go? Just then, as if reading Layla's thoughts, Martius opened his eyes and looked at her. Layla quickly bowed her head and announced, "Your Grace, I've brought the new roses." "New flowers? May I be excused now?" Layla asked softly. Martius didn't answer, but twisted the question back at her. "If you could, would you leave?" Layla quickly retorted, "Although I unfortunately made a mistake earlier, this time I've brought the exact color you wanted." After saying that, Layla suddenly felt a chill down her spine. She thought to herself, "I got so annoyed, I just blurted out whatever I was thinking." Yet Martius didn't seem angry at all. Martius looked at the document in his hand and said to her, "All right, have a seat." Layla breathed a sigh of relief when she saw he wasn't angry. She thought to herself, "It seems I chose the right color he wanted this time." But she didn't want to linger there for too long. "No need, sir. If His Grace the Duke is pleased, I'll take my leave." It seemed Martius didn't want to let her off so easily. He found another reason for her to stay. "Miss Layla, if you've brought the flowers, isn't arranging them also your task?" Layla stammered in response, "But my flower arranging skills aren't very good." Martius maintained his gentle demeanor. "So, what now?" Just a gentle question, but it put Layla in a difficult position. She sighed wearily. She thought, now in this mansion, it's just the Duke and me. Even if she wasn't skilled, this was still her responsibility. Layla sat down in the chair and began to take each flower she had picked and arrange them in the vase. Although Martius's hand was writing on paper, his gaze was fixed on Layla. Suddenly, I remembered the canary in the bedroom. At first, it trembled in my hand. When it was moved into the bedroom, it was silent as death. After a while, it gradually let down its guard and started following me. No matter how difficult it was to tame, now it can perch on my hand and rub against me, our eyes meeting before it sings beautifully. It's as if it's chirping a love story. What about Layla Rowellin? As Layla looked up, she met Marsh's gaze, which was fixed on her. This awkwardness prompted Layla to act quickly. She grabbed the vase on the table. "Oh dear, is there no water in the vase?" Then she hugged the vase and hurried out. After a while, the roses were arranged in the vase. Layla felt as if she had just escaped a predicament. "I finished arranging them, Duke. Do you like it?" Marcius now recalled Layla's earlier words. "I don't know how to arrange flowers." Her words were honest, but he still commented, "It looks terrible." Hearing this, Layla could only apologize. "Then I'll ask someone else who can arrange them more beautifully." At this moment, Martius told Layla to sit down. Layla froze for 5 seconds. "Excuse me, what?" Martius repeated. "Sit down, Layla." He placed a covered plate of food in front of her and said, "Please eat." Layla opened the lid of the dish. On the plate were 2 hamburgers and a glass of cold water. Seeing Layla standing there dumbfounded, Martius also felt confused. Why is she acting so flustered? Is she tired from working so hard? She likes that dish, she eats it with gusto, and she smiles brightly like the sun. If you like such things, I think I've compensated you appropriately. Although the results were quite poor, you did the gardener's job. It turned out that Martius had been paying attention to Layla's every action from the very beginning, and had even prepared the food as compensation for her. "Oh, my aloof CEO," Layla replied coldly. "Thank you, Duke, I'm fine." Martius took a sip of water, his mind pondering the thoughts of the girl opposite him. "If you have no further requests, I'll take my leave." Martius immediately set the glass of water down on the table. "Is that what you mean?" After Martius finished thinking, he began to speak. "Layla, are my words a plea for a favor?" In the previous chapter, Layla had said to Martius, "If you have no further requests, I'd like to take my leave." If that's what you mean, Layla, that is a demand, not a favor. Hearing that, Layla clenched her fists, trying not to lose control. She knew it couldn't possibly be a favor. After all, her feelings didn't matter, so refusing would be pointless. After that, Layla silently sat down on the chair. Refusing further could make the situation worse. She might as well eat quickly and then leave. She reached out and took a piece of cake. Layla then remembered she had already eaten, and had even had a snack earlier. She didn't know if it was from running back and forth between the garden and the mansion, or due to the scorching heat, but she couldn't swallow anything. She held the piece of cake in her hand, her heart filled with discomfort. Was this truly just payment for odd jobs, or was it punishment for her terrible flower arranging? That must be it. While chewing on a piece of cake, Layla caught Martius's eye. She felt puzzled. Why had he been staring at her all this time? Layla lowered her head to avoid the Duke's gaze. Martius continued to observe her casually, just as before, like when they were children. She recalled times when she saw things she shouldn't have, only to lower her head, pretend to be busy, and then run away, to the point of feeling uncomfortable.
After pondering, Martius placed his cup on the table. Suddenly, Martius approached, took hold of the ribbon on Layla's hat, and said, "Layla, as a lady, you must remove your hat indoors." Layla was frozen stiff by his action. Layla's floral hat was removed by Martius. He casually came into close contact with Layla. After this action, Layla felt utterly stunned. She imagined herself kneeling at Martius's feet, then laughed at herself, thinking that she had tried to endure. Even in difficult situations, she would still smile casually, as if any command he gave her would be acceptable.
But his gift could not be turned into a joke for others. Having thought that, the female lead immediately stood up and declared firmly, "I would like to return home now, therefore please return my hat, your grace." Martius heard that and without haste calmly replied, "Then eat. When you're done eating, I will return your hat so you can go home. It's simple." Layla didn't want to endure the humiliation any longer and resolutely refused. "No, I don't like it. I don't want to eat. I can't eat now, so please return my hat." At this moment, Martius stood up and walked towards her. "You don't like it?" Layla quickly adopted a conciliatory tone. "I was wrong. Please return my hat." Martius held the hat high, out of her reach. Seeing this, Layla immediately called out loudly, "Duke!" Then she pleaded with him, "Give me back my hat." Martius's gaze remained the same, looking intently at Layla. The cake on the table also fell at this moment. Martius's eyes were truly beautiful, a truly beautiful jade green, drawing people in. But his actions were far from graceful. Suddenly, Martius threw her floral hat out the door. Seeing this, Layla frantically ran to the door. She tried to reach out to grasp a tiny glimmer of hope, but it was too late. Layla could only stand and watch. Her precious hat had fallen into the river below. Layla immediately ran down to the yard below to retrieve the hat. Carried by the current, the hat had drifted quite far. Layla was flustered. "What should I do? I can't reach it. I need to hurry before it drifts even further away." At this moment, Layla suddenly recalled her past. Her cousins had bullied her, giving her a debut she would never forget. They had thrown her into a lake. Layla couldn't swim, so she panicked, thrashed about, and tried to scream loudly for someone to hear her. But those wonderful cousins didn't care in the slightest, only saying, "Let's see how you do. Try to do well." Back in reality, the image of herself drowning came back to haunt Layla. Her feet were rooted to the spot, feeling terrified. Suddenly, Layla remembered Uncle Biller enthusiastically bringing the floral hat that he had personally chosen.
Why are there so many types of hats in this world? I bought it at Rindon's store. If you don't like it, just take it back there to exchange it. Layla was incredibly excited at that moment. She exclaimed, "Did you personally choose it for me, Uncle? It's so beautiful, Uncle. I must use it carefully. I can't waste it." Her uncle smiled. Without hesitation, Layla put on the floral hat, her face radiant with happiness. "What do you think, Uncle? Does it suit me?" Uncle Biller smiled kindly, looking at her as if she were his own little daughter. "Yes, it's very beautiful." Because it was Uncle Biller himself who gave it to her, Layla felt no fear. She began to take off her glasses, then carefully place them on a cloth. At this moment, Martius was still standing nonchalantly on the balcony, looking down with an expressionless face. The sight of Layla stepping down into the river made him ponder. Could it be that she intends to go into the river to retrieve that hat? Layla's entire body was already in the water. She slowly moved towards the hat. Martius was still intently observing her every move. The section of the river near the villa wasn't very deep, but the further she went, the much deeper the water became. Layla was now very close to the hat. She reached out for it. Then she firmly grasped the hat string. But Layla didn't know that she had gone very far out, and the water here was very deep. She felt herself floundering with no support. Layla immediately panicked. She didn't know how to swim, so she struggled. But the more she struggled, the more the water pulled her down. Martius stood on the bank, saw that the situation was not good, and turned to go down. The cake still lay neglected on the floor. Eat, pick up the hat, go home. Such a simple task, why did it become so complicated? Layla used all her might to surface. But for someone who couldn't swim like her, how could she stay afloat? Martius had now run down to the river. Layla had given up, just sinking into the river, but still clutching the floral hat in her hand. Martius immediately sped up, jumping straight into the river to save Layla. He tightly embraced her small body. Then, pushing Layla upwards, the two slowly surfaced. The sun was still blazing. Martius had now managed to get Layla ashore. Layla lay limp like a lifeless body, but still clutched the hat tightly to her chest. She slowly sat up. Martius felt a little reassured when he saw Layla wake up and breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that she was all right. Martius was also soaking wet at this point. But what caught his attention was that Layla was still clutching the hat tightly. Even after falling into the water and almost drowning, she still held it so tightly. What was that hat? Martius turned his face away, a sarcastic smile playing on his lips, unsure if it was directed at Layla or himself. Layla saw him sitting there laughing and turned to look. Her face was full of indignation and anger. "Why? How could you do that?" Layla clenched her fists, then stood up facing Martius. After all, how could he still laugh after everything that happened?
Whose fault was it that things turned out this way? The hat was all wet. Then, Layla quickly flicked the hat to shake off the water, but it struck Martius.
Despite a slight worry, Layla ignored it. She pursed her lips tightly, looking dismissive. Forget it. Even if I don't splash, I'm already completely soaked anyway. Layla, emboldened, used the hem of her skirt to splash water everywhere. Martius now just sat silently, watching Layla wring out her clothes. He wiped the water from his face and then uttered a phrase often heard from powerful executives. Interesting, isn't it? I didn't expect things to be this interesting. Hearing this, Layla thought to herself, what's so interesting about it? Then she asked him, ultimately, why did you do that to me? Hearing this, Martius began to speak. Layla, first of all, shouldn't you show gratitude to your savior? Hearing him say such a shameless thing left Layla stunned. What are you talking about? Layla replied without any fear. I, on the other hand, think that if you hadn't thrown my hat into the river, none of this would have happened. Upon hearing this, Martius immediately stood up and retorted. No, if you had just obediently eaten your sandwich and returned, that wouldn't have happened.
Layla was a little taken aback by this. Her cheeks gradually reddened and she cast her eyes down. Martius, emboldened, continued. He flicked water from his hand at Layla. If you don't know how to swim, don't just jump in blindly like that. Layla bit her lip, trying to suppress the feelings of injustice and indignation that were about to burst forth. After all, the Duke was the master of Arvis, and her actions would put Uncle Biller in an awkward position. It was all for Uncle Biller, for Uncle Biller. Then she bowed and said, "Thank you for saving me, Duke." Martius, who was buttoning up his shirt, demanded Layla to do it again. Do it like a lady. Layla's anger rushed to her head, but she had to chant in her mind, "For Uncle Biller." Layla replied, "Forgive me, Duke, but I am not a lady like a noble young lady." Martius replied to Layla, "Even so, in front of me you must behave like a lady. No matter who you are, I am still a gentleman." Martius stared at Layla as if expecting something. His argument left Layla speechless. Then she put on her hat and bowed slightly. "Thank you for saving my life, Duke. I'll take my leave now. Goodbye." Having said that, without waiting for permission, she hurried past Martius. Her steps were firm. Today, she wouldn't collapse. She wouldn't become that man's joke again. Absolutely no crying. She mustn't cry for such a person. Please. Layla tried not to let the tears welling up spill onto her face. Layla walked out of sight of the river blue eyes and ran home, just like the day she found the gold coin and ran away. Now even the shadow of her hat couldn't hide her reddened eyes. She hated it. Layla ran even faster. She had seen it before. He was strolling on the forest path with Lady Claudine, the image of a courteous gentleman escorting a beautiful lady, just like in an old court fairy tale. Layla unconsciously watched their figures. At the end of the path, unfortunately, the wind blew off the lady's hat.
He slowly approached the edge of the road, picked up the hat, and returned it to Miss Claudine, a beautiful, graceful gesture. Yet today he insulted Layla with similar beautiful gestures, his face calm as if nothing had happened. Dazzling sunlight streamed through the trees. Layla couldn't overcome her emotions. She buried her face in the tree trunk and wept over her own mortification. Her eyes were red and swollen. Martius still maintained a calm expression as if nothing had happened. In front of Layla, he became cruel. The situation was already unchangeable. Layla used the river water to wash her tear-stained face. She leaned against a nearby tree trunk to rest. This day had dragged on so persistently. A moment later, Layla continued her journey. No longer feeling mortified, she now felt angry. What kind of savior is this? Is this how a lady behaves? Layla vented her anger on a small stone on the road. Her indignation towards the Duke immediately surged, so she kicked the roadside pebble with all her might.
As she watched the innocent pebbles fly, Layla frowned through her blurry vision. It was then that she realized her fatal mistake. Layla stood frozen. Oh, my glasses. The distance home suddenly seemed further. At Martius's mansion, in the grand room, clear music echoed. Martius sat in a corner meticulously examining Layla's glasses. Looking at the glasses reminded him of the girl who always looked at him with a scowl. Her gaze was often weary and ordinary, but her sparkling eyes were particularly captivating. Martius reached for a cigarette, brought it to his mouth, and lit it. He slowly stepped out onto the balcony, Layla's glasses in his hand. The glasses were tossed playfully by Martius, held snugly in his palm. Martius suddenly remembered meeting Layla for the first time, when the girl said she would stay in Arvis for a while. Then the glasses were tossed up again, but that girl had unconsciously grown into a woman. In his domain, Martius suddenly thought of the moment she stood there the day before.
The girl with wondrous, sparkling green eyes used them to look at him. There was a fresh and sweet scent. Layla was like a rose blooming throughout the summer. Martius thought so. Martius casually held Layla's glasses in his hand. He pondered over these thoughts. Those memories made him let out a long sigh. He mumbled Layla's name. He whispered the name like the summer heat. He kept calling her name, the name chafing at the tip of his tongue, irritating him. After toying with it several times as if playing, Martius put the glasses into the drawer.
Then the thought of the green eyes behind the glasses also vanished. Martius had bathed for quite a while. He quickly changed and adjusted his attire. Outside, the sky was dimming. It was time for Martius to leave the villa for the party, returning to the perfect appearance of the Duke known for his singing, as was his custom. He leisurely walked to where the car was waiting. As soon as Martius sat in, the car began to depart. It was a dinner in the peaceful summer night.
At Uncle Biller's house, it was probably taken by the crows. He said to Layla, "Those birds are always crazy about shiny things. Do you remember your hair clip?" Layla chuckled softly and said, "Of course, how could I forget?" It was a gift Uncle Biller gave Layla for her 13th birthday. It was stolen just days after she started wearing it, and even just remembering that made Layla heartbroken. Uncle Bill also remembered that since that day, she had searched all the crow's nests in the forest, but ultimately couldn't find it. Layla pouted and said, "If that happens again, no matter how much I like birds, I'll hate crows." Uncle Bill comforted her. "Don't worry too much. If necessary, you can buy new glasses. If you can't find them, you must tell me. Remember, Layla, don't keep it to yourself." She nodded in agreement. The truth was, Layla didn't dare tell Uncle Biller that she had angrily thrown her hat into the river, so she couldn't say she had left her glasses at the pier. That would only make him uncomfortable. Layla thought her glasses must still be there. Tomorrow morning, she planned to quietly.
The next morning, Layla arrived at the mansion, but she searched everywhere and still couldn't find her glasses. She clearly remembered leaving them on a handkerchief. Suddenly, she noticed the handkerchief lying alone in a corner. The handkerchief had been moved, meaning the glasses placed on it were also gone. Could it be the Duke? Layla couldn't believe it, as she thought the Duke had no reason to take them. Just then, a crow was perched on a branch. Layla suspected it was the culprit. She yelled, "Where did you put them? You really took them, didn't you?" Layla was helpless, not knowing how to find her glasses. The suspects could only be one of two, the crow or the Duke. A pigeon flew to Kyle's room window. Kyle looked out from his room and greeted it. This was Layla's messenger, a pigeon named Peebee, with 2 years of experience in the trade, notably unafraid of people and a big eater. After receiving the letter, Kyle thanked it, but Peebee seemed displeased, as if a verbal thank you wasn't enough. Understanding, Kyle immediately got food for Peebee as payment. Kyle held the letter and wondered. They had an appointment at the library later, yet Layla sent a letter now. Was she going to be late? In the letter, Layla wrote, "Kyle, I lost my glasses. Today I have to go look for them, so I can't keep my promise to go to the library with you. I'm very sorry." Kyle stood up in surprise. Layla had worked so hard for so long to buy those glasses. How could she have lost them? Without thinking much, he quickly grabbed his jacket and left. Kyle's mother asked, puzzled, "It's time for your studies. Where are you going?" Kyle had to lie to get by. He said, "I'm going to the library to study and then I'll come home, Mom." But his mother guessed, "You're not going to Layla's house again, are you?" Without saying much, Kyle stepped out the door and called back, "Layla will be with me and I'll be home early, Mom." His mother was at a loss for words with his son, helpless as he fussed around Layla every day. An important time was approaching, and how long was he going to keep playing with that girl? Kyle quickly went to Layla's place. Hearing the familiar call, Layla looked over curiously. He immediately asked, "How did you lose your glasses? Have you found them yet?" "Still haven't found them." Layla said, "Kyle, did you make an offer, or should I buy you something else? Now let's go downtown together." Layla was silent for a moment, then she asked again, "Kyle, what's wrong?" At this moment, Kyle suddenly remembered that his impatience had made him forget what kind of person Layla was. She thanked him but said it wasn't necessary. Besides, she also intended to continue searching. Kyle had known the meaning of that look in Layla's eyes since they were children. No matter what anyone said, she would not back down. That was the stubborn look of Layla Rowland, who was always determined to achieve what she had set out to do. The next day, Layla began to rummage through the crow's nests. Kyle stood below, holding the ladder for her, and asked, "Is it there?" In response, Layla said, "Not this time either." Above Layla's head, a crow was aggressively flying towards her. Kyle quickly warned her to be careful. In the blink of an eye, a flock of crows flew over and attacked Layla. She had no choice but to give up and climb down. There was nothing here either, so the two of them immediately went to the next spot, showing great determination. Suddenly, Layla asked, "Kyle, shouldn't we be heading home now? Thank you for coming with me, but I can go alone now." Of course, Kyle wanted them to go search together, because no matter how hard he tried to stop her, Layla wouldn't listen, so he had to go along. The sight of Layla with her hair full of crow feathers was quite amusing. From a distance, the Duke's carriage was approaching. The butler saw the two of them and wondered what the children were doing. The coachman smiled and said he had also heard about it. He said it seemed a crow had taken Layla's glasses, so they were probably looking for that crow. The servants' world here spread all sorts of stories. Marcius now wondered, a crow? There's no way she didn't know she had forgotten her glasses at the dock. If that's the case, and she's searching in a crow's nest, Marcius wanted to know if she truly didn't know, or if Layla didn't want to know. Seeing Layla's figure passing by outside, in that moment, she also accidentally made eye contact with Marcius. Seeing the person sitting in the carriage, Layla was also slightly surprised. The two of them just passed each other by. Layla's disheveled, messy hair made Marcius chuckle to himself.
Layla was bewildered, not understanding why the Duke was looking at her with that kind of gaze.
She felt truly unlucky, but then quickly thought she must try to search more thoroughly. Kyle, standing beside her, asked, "What do we do now, Layla?" She replied, "Let's go, to the next crow's nest." Whether it was a crow or a duke, Layla had sifted through 2 suspects. Since then, Layla had wandered in the forest for a few more days, with Kyle happily accompanying her, but all their efforts were in vain. Martius pretended not to care, even though Layla looked very happy searching through all the bird nests. As time passed, their foolish actions gradually became boring. In the following days, Martius put aside his busy schedule to go to his private villa. Marquis Lindman announced he will arrive tomorrow at noon, the butler informed Martius. He asked, "Riet? He's arriving earlier than expected, isn't he?" The butler replied, "The Dowager Duchess instructed us to prepare lunch for tomorrow. She also hopes that if your grace is not busy, you would join them." Suddenly, Martius saw Layla's figure peeking out from beyond the villa grounds. He smiled, then said to the butler, "Very well, let's do that." "Then I will have the carriage ready for your grace tomorrow at noon," he replied. "I wish your grace a pleasant time." Having finished, the butler and the servants departed.
The car slowly disappeared from the mansion. Layla, standing outside, also noticed it. She stared intently at the mansion, but still didn't dare to step inside. However, because of the glasses, Layla finally went in to meet Martius. She spoke up. "I apologize for coming to see you so unexpectedly like this, Duke." Martius observed, thinking to himself, completely different from when she waved her hat and skirt in front of me last time. A moment later, he spoke to Layla. "All right, what is it?" She hesitated. "I apologize, sir. I have something I'd like to ask." Suddenly, a phone rang. Martius slowly stood up. Layla remained standing there, not daring to look directly at Martius. Just like that, he brushed past Layla and went to answer the phone. She didn't understand what she heard, but it seemed to be a complex contract. Layla thought back and realized he was still working at the mansion. Well, it was only natural. The Herhard family's business scope was so vast that being busy was understandable.
How was it that the Duke always looked so composed and at ease? Even when he smiled, his gaze was very serene and his posture was ramrod straight, as if ingrained within him. Even when engaging in polite conversation over the phone, she could sense the overwhelming aura of the family head. It was no wonder everyone lauded Duke Herhard as perfect. Layla agreed. How could such a person, Duke Herhard, who was always praised by everyone, be a suspect in taking her glasses? No, I was the pathetic one for even wondering such things. Layla felt pathetic, realizing her thoughts were all baseless. Now, going back to search the remaining places might be more effective. Layla decided to do that. While still on the phone, Martius glanced over at Layla. Layla took the initiative to speak, her voice soft. "Goodbye, Duke. I'll take my leave now." Martius covered the phone's receiver with one hand and said, "Wait." Layla was bewildered. However, she didn't dare disobey Martius's command, so she stood still. Layla truly didn't understand what Martius meant.
Martius also stopped calling. He told Layla to go ahead and say what she wanted to say. Layla clasped her hands tightly, her voice soft. "I left my glasses at the dock the other day, before I fell into the water. Did you happen to see them?" "Let me see. I don't think so," Martius said. "But it seems I've hidden them." These words surprised Layla greatly. She quickly asked, "Did you really hide my glasses?" Martius stepped forward and said, "What do you think?" "Is he going to tease me again?" Layla wondered. She then said, "I don't think you did that." She hesitated. "That's too terrible, Duke," Layla said sadly. At present, night enveloped the entire palace. A party was taking place inside today. This was the master suite. Royal servants brought in the food. Riet took a glass of wine and said, "I can't believe such a private space is big enough for everyone." "The Duke is truly generous with his fiancée's suggestion," Claudian said shyly. Riet, "You're drunk. The engagement ceremony hasn't taken place yet. Everyone calling me that makes me so embarrassed." Others chimed in, "What's the big deal? It's the truth. It's just us here. What's there to worry about? Everyone knows Claudine will be the next duchess." At this moment, Riet just smiled without saying anything. After that, Claudine wanted to quickly end the party. "It seems everyone has had too much to drink. Shall we get up?" The man interjected, "I just sat down. There's no need to make a fuss." "If you're uncomfortable, I apologize, Duchess." Suddenly, Riet noticed something. "But what is that? A bird cage? This is quite a surprise. Martius, what kind of strange hobby have you suddenly picked up?" The bird in the cage suddenly flew out, then landed on Martius's hand. Everyone gasped in surprise. Martius was planning to try raising this bird. Riet's expression showed disbelief. "You're raising it yourself, not someone else? What's wrong? Are you going to raise it yourself for hunting this time?"
How pitiful. Anyway, it seems that bird doesn't know what kind of person our Duke is. The bird is entrusting its life to the master bird hunter. Should this be called foolishness or pity? Claudine, what do you think? Claudine gently said, "Well, let's see. Could this be considered a bird that is both foolish and pitiful? It seems to be the bird you brought back from the conservatory last time. Have you named it yet? If not, then I'd like to give it a name."
but Martius didn't want to. "It's not worth doing that, young lady. It's just a bird." Everyone burst out laughing, especially Riette. Indeed, a foolish, pitiful bird, a little hunter that couldn't even give itself a name. Claudine's gaze flickered to the other side, where the bird was perched on Martius's hand. Layla was trying to fall asleep. She kept tossing and turning. Then she remembered the time Layla had spoken with Martius. "I never thought you would do that, because that's awful, Duke."
Layla had gathered all her courage to ask him, only 4. The butler approached and called Martius. He had received an urgent telegram and returned immediately, stating that its contents required the Duke's confirmation right now. A cold nod seemed to signal Layla to leave. I was forced to return without being able to ask anything more about the glasses. But even so, I was able to confirm that it wasn't a crow that took them, but the Duke himself. After all, why did he take my glasses? Could it be that he also likes shiny things, just like a crow? What should I do now? How long will I have to keep asking for them back? It seems he doesn't intend to return them easily, but I can't wait forever either. Isn't there a better way? According to my guess, it's highly likely the glasses are stored somewhere in the villa, as there's no need to bring items found from the dock all the way to the mansion. Today, the Herhard family is gathering and hosting a dinner party. Everyone, including the Duke, is enjoying the party until late at night. Surely no one would come to the villa in such a secluded place in the middle of the night, with deductive reasoning skills like a detective in a mystery novel.
Lila had devised a rather dubious plan. If she quickly went to the mansion and secretly searched for the glasses, just as the moon was bright, moving around would be easier. "Let's go get them back." No, at least I should check on them. There shouldn't be any problem. After all, they're my glasses. At the Herhard family's party venue, Martius was admiring the flowers on the balcony, muttering Layla Ruellen's name. Now is the time to check my trap. Layla must have recognized the implication in his words, but her green eyes had looked at him intensely, as if wanting to say something. She had scoured the forest for days just to find her glasses. This time she certainly wouldn't let it go easily. She would definitely fall into the trap. Marcius had been back at the mansion for a while. He observed the glasses in his hand. What is this bait meant to achieve? Even without an answer, he didn't care. The window suddenly flew open. Martius felt surprised. Layla was climbing in through the window. She put her foot inside first, then slowly and stealthily made her way into the house. Anyway, Martius would just capture her and deal with it then. The window suddenly burst open violently. Layla was inside in a flash. Her every movement was incredibly gentle. Her deep blue eyes observed her surroundings. Martius sensed the sound. He had deliberately left the window open to listen more easily. Could she have entered through the window? Though it was outside his expectations, she always surprised him. Layla didn't dare turn on the light. The room was so dark she couldn't see anything. Martius peeked. After her forceful entry into the villa, he wondered what she was planning. It turned out she was searching through the drawers. But unfortunately, there was nothing special there. Despite her efforts, Layla found nothing here. There was nothing elsewhere either. Layla didn't know where else it could be hidden. This was bait for Martius to achieve his goal. That girl, she was no longer just a girl. She was Layla Ruellen. Martius thought he could easily recognize her now.
Why wait for this miserable trap? Layla was still diligently searching. Suddenly, Marcius's voice rang out from behind her. "Looking for this?" This startled Layla immensely. Why is the Duke here? Clearly there's a party at the mansion today, Layla thought to herself. This isn't good. What should I do now? How should I explain this situation? Layla quickly said, "I apologize. I didn't know your grace was here. My deepest apologies, your grace." Marcius said gravely, "If I'm not here, does that mean you can just barge in, like a thief?" Layla's gaze fell upon Marcius's hand. "Those are my glasses. I just wanted to retrieve my belongings. It's the glasses the Duke hid," Layla thought to herself. Despite his forceful demeanor, it hides a hint of cowardice. He's already trembling. Marcius turned away. Layla didn't know what the Duke was planning to do. Where is he going? Is he going to throw the glasses into the river, just like he did with the hat? No, if he does that, I'll never be able to find them again. No, please stop, Duke. "Please, those are my glasses." The towel wrapped around Layla suddenly fell, leaving her in only a thin nightgown. Martius's gaze dropped. Layla blushed and covered herself. She knelt down to pick up the towel and slowly wrapped it back around her. There was now a hint of a smile in Martius's voice. "Layla, you've seen my body before. It's quite amusing that you've come here now in just a nightgown." Layla was in an extremely awkward situation. This predicament was unavoidable. It wasn't what she wanted, nor did she have any other choice. Looking at Martius's current expression, Layla didn't know where to hide. She told herself, "Just bear with it. This situation is very disadvantageous for me." She thought the Duke could immediately arrest her for theft or simply throw the glasses into the river. For him, putting her at a disadvantage was far too easy. "I didn't mean to. I apologize, your grace." Layla's demeanor amused Martius slightly. "Why are you suddenly acting like a lady? You said you weren't one." Layla said nervously, "Regardless, your grace is still a gentleman." Marcius's lips curved upwards, his laughter echoing outwards. "You know, Layla, I might not be a gentleman.
Seeing that it was somewhat okay, Layla pressed on. No, the Duke is a gentleman, the most wonderful gentleman, she sang. Marcius moved closer to her. Is that so? That's a generous assessment, Layla said with a laugh. How could I dare to assess the Duke? That would be absurd. Doesn't everyone think so? Yes, they do. I don't think so. How could that be? Therefore, Your Grace, please return my glasses. These glasses were very difficult to make. To me, they are a very important item. I am very sorry for presumptuously entering the mansion to retrieve them. Marcius stepped closer to her. Layla looked up. Marcius suddenly and slowly put the glasses on her. Layla hadn't expected Marcius to put the glasses on her himself, and even touch her hair in the process. The look Marcius gave Layla was deeply affectionate. His hand involuntarily reached out and touched Layla's cheek. Marcius's expression seemed to want to convey something.
The moonlight tonight is very clear and bright. The night is incredibly beautiful. Now Marcius understood what that feeling was. He yearned for this girl, Layla. He also knew the outcome for this feeling towards that beautiful girl. This desire would only last for a short time before disappearing. Was he willing to leave a stain on his life just to satisfy that feeling? Was Layla worth that much? No. If not, then why not? The hand touching Layla's lips slowly let go. The answer to this was already too clear. Get out. Layla slowly left the mansion, a lonely figure on the late-night road. How had she left? Goodbye. Then she returned. On the tree-lined road, all memories were hazy. What she remembered most clearly were those deep blue eyes, like a devouring river, that hot hand, the touch like a finger moving in and out of a mouth, the pull that made her hold her breath. Immediately after that came a feeling of pain and shame.
Why was he treating her like this? The oil lamp in the quiet night looked truly sad. Layla's eyes were full of complex emotions. She never wanted to see him again. Marcius, too, couldn't forget that recent moment. It had been many days since he last saw Layla Rowellin, who usually went to the garden to help Bill Lemmer. This was ever since the day she found the glasses. That night, holding Layla in his arms, he thought a lot about his feelings for her. After coming to a meaningless and dull conclusion, he let her go. He believed he could control such emotions. But precisely because he let her go like that, causing her to leave so far away, it was for the best. Marcius was lost in thought about Layla. Suddenly, someone entered and said to him, "Young master, we have prepared well for the hunting trip." Elsewhere, Kyle saw Layla holding a laundry basket and asked, "Are you going to do laundry? Let's go together." Layla happily replied, "Thank you." As she hung the clothes, Layla pondered.
10 days was how long I had been avoiding him. Kyle turned to Layla and said, "Once we're done with this, let's go for a walk. To that tree by the river that you like, okay?" Since Layla didn't want to go near the river, she tried to politely decline. "A walk? Let's go next time. I still have a lot of things to do at home right now." Kyle asked in surprise, "What's wrong? That's strange. Why are you always at home these days? I thought once you found your glasses, you'd be more active. But for some reason, it's the opposite, isn't it?" Layla smiled. "Is that so?" She didn't even set foot in the forest. Not seeing Layla wearing crosses, Kyle wondered, "But you found your glasses. Why aren't you wearing them?" Layla immediately said, "It's just that I'm afraid of losing them again. I'll only use them when reading." Even when she went to the garden to help her uncle, Layla quickly left as if fleeing on her way back. To avoid the Duke, Layla had to continue living like this until summer ended. Suddenly, there was a sound in the distance. A group of people rode up on horseback, carrying guns on their shoulders.
Kyle spoke up. "It seems like there's an organized hunt. That's great." Layla froze for a few seconds when Martius turned to look at her. Martius's gaze stared intently at Layla. Frightened, Layla pressed herself against the clothes hanging on the line, then quickly pulled the clothes and hid behind them. Summer was ending, and autumn was approaching. After getting engaged to Lady Claudine, he would leave here for the capital, so if she could just endure one more season. Martius walked a short distance and then stopped, looking carefully once more. Layla remained still, hidden behind the clothes. Kyle looked at Layla. "Are you not happy? Do you want to come to my house?" "It's okay, Kyle. It will end by evening anyway." Layla bent down to pick up the laundry basket. "Let's go inside." Seeing that, Kyle ran over to help. "Give it here, I'll carry it." "Are you really okay?" Layla asked. "Yes, Kyle, it's okay. When he leaves, peace will return to Arvis Forest. These chaotic days will end." Then Layla looked towards the forest.
"Anyway, I have to go into the forest for a bit tonight. There will be many poor birds that need to be buried in the forest." Martius said to everyone, "I'll take another stroll for a bit. You all can take the guests back first." Everyone said in unison, "Yes, we understand, Duke." Dusk began to fall. Suddenly, Martius stopped his horse because he saw a bird perched on a branch. Martius aimed his gun at the bird, his eyes intently fixed on the target. The moment he hit the intended target, the shot wounded the bird. Despite losing a lot of blood, the bird still tried to fly away. Martius found it truly amusing. Today was a satisfying hunt, as I said, but even so, I still feel like something is missing. Perhaps because of that bird desperately trying to escape. It seems I've hunted more types of birds today. Layla carried a shovel and went into the forest. Every few steps, there was another dead bird. Layla cursed under her breath. How hateful. She dug individual holes to bury those unfortunate birds. I hate Duke Herhart's unpleasant hobby, but there's something strange. Layla carefully examined the graves where birds were buried every year, but she had never seen the distance between the graves so regular as it was today. Layla felt uneasy. It would be better to bury the last bird and return. Layla hurriedly turned back with a worried expression. She stopped dead in her tracks, frightened as she saw someone ahead. Marcius said, "Keep going, Layla Rebelin. You have to do your job." Layla approached Marcius, and because she was nearsighted, she tried to get a good look at who it was. Marcius's figure gradually became clear. Marcius spoke, "Hello, Layla." Layla gasped when she saw the Duke. So knowing I would come to bury them, he deliberately arranged this. That red string, it's the string I used to tie around the newly hatched birds on the banks of the Schulter River last year. The birds that migrated from the south after winter finally lost their lives where they were born, all because of that man's petty pleasure. Seeing Layla silent, Martius continued, "Go on, Layla Rowlin, do your job." Layla bent down and continued her work as Martius had instructed. Martius pressed, "Did you wear that cord?" Layla sadly replied, "Yes." Martius continued, "Why? I wanted to know if the migratory birds would return, but I certainly didn't want a reunion like this. It seems you're criticizing me, but what's the problem? This is my territory, my hunting ground. It's merely my bird hunting. But that's what you know, the birds don't. For the birds, this is just a forest, where they were born and grew up. It's a place where, no matter how far they go, they still want to return. Am I supposed to understand the hearts of birds? No, it's not that. But even so, you shouldn't hunt so cruelly." Layla picked up the shovel and pondered. Does the Duke know that to say these words, compared to when I was little and only had an address in hand, yet dared to board a train?
How much courage is truly needed? Layla Rowlin knows those birds well, but does she understand what hunting is? Does she want a friendly hunting trip? Layla thought, then sighed. "I apologize, sir. I spoke a bit arrogantly. Please forgive my disrespect." Martius asked Layla, "Why do you like birds so much? Perhaps it's not an interesting story for your grace." Layla's answer made Martius curious. Layla carefully buried the bird. Finally, the burial was complete. "I have finished my work. I'll take my leave now, your grace." Martius saw a new target. As Layla walked away, Martius picked up his gun. As Layla casually made her way back, Martius's voice called out, "What's this, Layla? It seems your work isn't finished yet." Layla looked up at the branch, her fear evident. "I'd rather you just tell me directly what offense I've committed against your grace." Martius looked at Layla.
My fault? Well, tell me, what exactly did I do to deserve this terrible punishment? I'm not punishing you at all. I'm just doing my job. You're just doing your part too. A mistake? I don't know. Martius put his gun down. Why do you like birds so much? Hearing Martius's question, Layla froze, recalling the unhappy past with her mother. Her mother left when she was little. Even though she cried, her mother still decided to leave. She had to hide that painful truth, and calmly told Martius, "Because they're always by my side. When I was little, I traveled to many places. No matter where or when, birds were always there, always by my side. The birds leave when the seasons change, but if I just wait, they will come back. No season is without birds. They are always present, even in places where you'd think there wouldn't be any. They are the freest and most beautiful beings in this world, always by my side. I like them." Layla's eyes welled up. That might seem meaningless to the Duke.
Martius looked at Layla with a cold gaze. Layla wiped away the tears streaming down her cheeks. "Is this what hunting is all about?" Martius said coldly. "If necessary." The two stood looking at each other for a long time. Martius glanced at the watch on his wrist, realizing it was late. He quickly said, "Layla, I want everything in my world to be in its proper place, where it needs to be without pointless evasion or escape." Layla didn't understand Martius's meaning, so she asked again, "What does that mean?" Martius got straight to the point. "Maintain that position." "After all, I don't know what position I'm supposed to be in, Duke." Martius told Layla, "Think harder, don't you know? If you find the answer, perhaps I'll be a more amiable hunter." His figure and horse galloped swiftly into the forest. He recalled her words, "I truly don't understand what position I'm supposed to maintain, Duke." He was on horseback, heading somewhere. Martius didn't particularly expect anything from Layla. Layla only needed to be in her rightful place, as the orphan living in his forest, as the curious student. After graduation, she would become a teacher and forever remain in the place she was meant to be. As was the rule in his world, Martius was born into a world governed by perfect order, and then he became its master. In that order, everything was simple and clear, to live faithfully according to one's assigned role and expectations. That was not difficult at all, sometimes even a little boring. Martius always played a role for someone, and he was willing to embrace it. He was a proud heir to his grandmother and mother, a benevolent master to his servants, an excellent soldier on the battlefield, a brilliant businessman to his directors. Those around him were no different. They maintained their predetermined roles and attitudes, with emotions finely tuned within appropriate limits, interacting in an orderly fashion.
That was the world Martius had seen, heard, and learned. But what about the ordinary orphan living in his forest?
In the Duke's life, there was no place for the presence of a useless person. Yet this was the first time he had something that was nothing at all, an existence that didn't need to become anything. This feeling made him feel strange, but it wasn't bad at all. On the contrary, her emotions, which went beyond all limits, made him quite amused, like the moment of hitting a flying bird with a single shot, especially her tears. He liked Layla when she cried. A crying woman was beautiful. He wanted to make her cry again. Melodious music filled the room as someone approached and called out. The Duke turned indifferently. She said, "Was your stroll pleasant? I'm waiting for you. I heard the hunting was excellent today, wasn't it?" Everyone seemed to still be excited since returning from the hunting grounds. They only talked about that. It would, of course, be a bit awkward if they kept talking about hunting until the party ended. He said, "Next time you should join the hunt too, my lady." Hearing that, she replied, "Thank you for your offer, but I must decline. If I were to see blood right before my eyes, I might faint in front of everyone." She linked her arm with his. "Instead, soon I'm thinking of hosting a party myself at Arvis, also as practice. After we're married, I'll personally entertain guests, so the Duchess suggested I should try it first." He asked, "My mother?" "Yes, the Duchess cares for me like that. She's truly very thoughtful. Since this is the first party I'm hosting, I want to invite everyone I want to invite. Is that all right?" The Duke was slightly nonchalant. He turned to look at her and smiled. "My lady, do as you please." As the short summer night passed and a new morning arrived, Martius thought it wouldn't be bad if the next hunt were a little gentler. Layla stood in the rose garden, as always helping the gardener, having returned to her rightful place. Looking out from the mansion, he said, "See, it's easy, Layla." Transition to the greenhouse in the garden. "I've brought the flowers here, my lady." "Thank you, Layla. Put them there." She said, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Suddenly, the woman said, "Layla, could you pick a bouquet of red roses for me?"
"One bouquet is enough." She bowed her head and replied, "Yes, my lady." Then she slowly turned and walked away. The women at the same table began to gossip. "That girl, despite her polite demeanor, her attitude makes people feel she's arrogant, doesn't it?" "Indeed, her eyes seem to not know her place. I don't like it at all." The woman who had spoken earlier spoke up to explain for her. "Don't be like that. Layla is a pitiful child. Of course, I know Layla has that flaw, but please be lenient with her." The other two women shrugged and said, "You are truly too lenient with your servants. Before you become a lady, it would be best to discipline people like her first." Hearing that, she thought to herself, "Actually, it's not hard to understand such a reaction. Even I, who have observed her for a long time, think the same. A docile demeanor stems from absolute indifference. Even young ladies from renowned noble families want to befriend me, but Layla has never shown joy or excitement when I allowed her to approach. Not only did she not try to make a good impression, but she also appeared to be patiently enduring." That an orphan like Layla could evoke such feelings in me. A moment later, the young lady had the roses brought over. "Is this enough?" Layla asked. Claudine replied, Thank you, Layla. Today I intend to give you another gift." She glanced at the maid behind her, who understood. As a pitiful orphan, Layla still couldn't get used to receiving a gold coin. I wanted to give her a gift she would never forget. It was an invitation card. When Layla received the invitation card, the two women sitting at the table were quite surprised. "What? Claudine, are you going to invite her?" Layla held the card in her hand and asked, "Why are you giving this to me?" Claudine replied, "Consider it my graduation gift to you. It will be a beautiful memory for you." The two ladies have also agreed. Layla still didn't understand why. The gentlewoman said, "I truly hope you will come. I believe you won't refuse my invitation." Hearing this, Layla was so moved that tears streamed down, unable to be held back. Martius was now strolling in the shop. He glanced over a piece of vintage jewelry. It looked quite striking, catching his eye, a string of pearls adorned with 4 sparkling sapphire stones. He seemed somewhat taken with it, but ultimately quickly moved on. The scene shifts to a log cabin. "Oh my goodness, I'm truly furious. I don't understand why those nobles are so awful." Mr. Biller said, "It seems the rumor that Layla will attend the party has spread, hasn't it?" The aunt replied, "Of course. People are even saying that Lady Brant treats poor Layla like her own pet puppy, aren't they? It's just like her. Ever since she was little, whenever she got bored, she'd call Layla over. As if that wasn't enough, now she's even invited the girl to a party for the nobility. They call it considerate, but how is the girl supposed to compose herself at events like that? Really, Layla isn't the kind of person to be easily discouraged by such things. She just needs to make a brief appearance and then leave." The aunt sighed. "How can she be so thoughtless? After all these years, doesn't she know how to care for her own daughter?" The uncle replied, "What daughter are you talking about? I'm just thinking about where to send her. I haven't decided anything yet." Suddenly, the aunt screamed. You'll think when it's time to marry Layla off, you'll think when you're holding grandchildren in your arms, and you'll still be thinking when you're in your grave. He was too used to this. He just replied, Here we go again. I already told you, I'm just... The aunt interrupted. Stop nagging. Let's buy Layla a beautiful dress as a surprise gift. Layla is also a girl. She'll surely be very happy. He replied, I also think that's a good idea, but Layla is someone who never wants to own me anything, you know. If I say I'll buy her a dress, she'll definitely refuse. I know, so I'll do it instead of you, she replied confidently and held out her hand. He stared at her hand with a skeptical expression. Then he leaned forward, stood up, and went somewhere. By this time, he was holding a brown bag. Still keeping money in that old bag? Put it in the bank. He replied, Compared to the bank, this wooden house in Arvis is much safer, isn't it?
But if Layla finds out about this, there will be a huge fuss. The aunt replied, Don't worry. By the day of the party, I'll make sure Layla is unrecognizable. Then he pulled out a wad of cash. Is this enough? She replied, Give me a little more. For parties like that, you don't just need a dress. He slapped the table. All right then, buy whatever you need. Everything. The aunt chuckled, rarely seeing him so generous. Excellent. With this, we'll make those arrogant ladies' eyes pop out at Leela's beauty. Suddenly, the door swung wide open. I'm home. Both scrambled in a panic. One hid the money, the other hid the bag, pretending nothing had happened. Layla asked, Aunt Mona, are you here too? Aunt Mona replied, I brought some snacks, including the strawberry cake and cookies you like. Layla replied, Then I'll quickly change and come out to eat with you. Aunt Mona immediately refused and quickly ran out the door, making a swift exit. Unfortunately, I have to leave right away today. Goodbye, Layla. Is something urgent?
Then her uncle asked Layla, What are your plans? For the party. She replied brightly, The party? I just plan to drop by for a bit and then leave right away. Coincidentally, Professor Edmund was also invited, so I'll go with Kyle. Hearing that, her uncle thought to himself, That's not bad. It's rare for that freeloader to be useful. He said, So Layla, won't you need anything? Like a dress, for example? Layla replied awkwardly, A dress? No need, uncle. Anyway, I'm just dropping by for a moment. Her uncle said, How odd. For special occasions like this, you need to dress properly, don't you? Are you planning to wear your uniform to a place full of nobles? She replied with a smile, That wouldn't be so bad, would it? Seeing her positive demeanor, he didn't know what else to say. He thought to himself, She doesn't want to bother anyone, trying her best not to owe anyone anything. I understand that girl's intentions clearly. Even though I understand, I don't know how to comfort her. All I can do is grumble. Suddenly, she walked over and took his large calloused hand. This surprised him a little. It's okay, uncle.
It's really okay, uncle. He could only silently watch the little girl comforting him in return. The two of them were just like a real father and daughter. It was late at night. As Layla was deep in sleep, her hands suddenly clutched the blanket tightly. She woke up in a daze, her eyes brimming with tears, and immediately sprang out of bed. Breathing slowly, Layla tried to regain her composure. Looking around, she told herself, This is my room. I had a nightmare. In the dream, I was back in my childhood days, wandering from one relative's house to another, being bullied, oppressed, and brutally beaten. Even so, I still begged not to be abandoned. Back then, all I could do to avoid being abandoned was to do chores tirelessly, eat less, and live like an object placed in a hidden corner. But no matter how hard I tried, when I had to move to the next relative's house, I wouldn't cry. I would practice smiling. The more I wanted to cry, the brighter I would smile, because no one in the world likes an orphan child who cries a lot, always being passed around from one place to another. I became better at smiling.
Until the very last day she left her homeland alone for Berg, a smile couldn't appear on her face anymore, because she knew the address in her hand was her last hope. If she were abandoned again, she would have to go to an orphanage. So that day, she smiled with all her might when she met Uncle Berg's warm and compassionate gaze. He led her to an empty room. You can stay in here for now. The little girl looked around, her first step across the threshold of that room. The day she returned to a family, the day she had a place to call home, perhaps she would never forget it for the rest of her life. She opened the window wide to let the wind in, sweeping away all the worries in her mind at that moment. So it's all right. The next day, the Duke's party would be held tonight. To say it was nothing would be a lie, but she also didn't want to worry or hesitate too much. She just needed to attend bravely, stay there quietly, and then return. Lady Claudine wouldn't know that she had chosen this life. Afterwards, she went into the kitchen to cook breakfast. Her uncle walked out, looking dazed. I'm up, Layla. For Uncle Biller and this warm cabin, to protect what I love, I'm willing to do anything. She smiled and said, Did you sleep well, Uncle? The car is already waiting outside the mansion. The butler adjusted Mardius's coat. As instructed, everything has proceeded smoothly, Master. They departed about an hour ago, so the goods should have been delivered by now. Mardius nodded at the butler, then lit a cigarette for himself. My mother also informed me that Claudine invited Leela to this party.
All those praises about a kind girl who shows compassion and generosity, such words are pure fabrication. But I didn't object. If I just leave it alone, I might get to see an interesting show. If Layla appears today looking core, Claudine will stand before everyone, showing extreme pity and compassion for her. She would surely delight in shattering the pride of her enemy. Therefore, I don't want Claudine to get what she wants. That joy must be mine and mine alone.
I don't know how to share my things with others. A moment later, the butler nervously asked, Master, what shall we do with those items? The gift that the chef prepared on behalf of Bill Lemmer had been delivered here by Hessen. Other replacement items had also been brought to the log cabin as gifts from Bill. There was no need for items that no longer held value. And then Martius ordered them to throw all those things away. At Bill Lemmer's house, Layla was surprised by the number of gifts piled up inside. Uncle, how much money did you spend? Bill didn't know how to answer her. Let's see, how much did I give Mona? I did pay a bit of attention, but I didn't realize it would amount to this. The clothes, shoes, and gloves all looked luxurious. Even without much knowledge, one could tell they were expensive. The store staff even delivered them directly, so it definitely wasn't cheap. And that necklace, too. How much did that necklace cost? That's not it. Even though a large sum has been spent, if Layla can enjoy the party without losing face, then it's worth it.
Now, I've taken care of everything myself. You don't need to bother. This kid really worries about nothing. But Layla looked worried. Uncle, this is too much. Biller said, What? Don't you like it? I think it's perfectly fine. Layla, on the other hand, didn't think so. No, how could I not like it? It's just for one day, and I'm only coming for a little while before leaving. I can't let you spend so much money. I want to return these things. Biller was stunned. What? I've gone to such lengths to prepare these gifts, and you want to return them? Layla, if you don't wear it to the party, I'll never speak to you again. A hint of surprise flashed in Layla's eyes. What? This time, Uncle Biller was genuinely angry. You always refuse any kindness. I understand that. But Layla, people don't always have to draw such clear boundaries between each other. Don't let it fool you. It's all just knockoffs, cheap stuff. What I truly want is to give you the best things in the world.
But my situation isn't like that. Come on, if you don't even want to accept this small token of goodwill, then just leave it. I'll take it all and burn it for firewood. And Layla, I'll never see you again. Understand? Bill angrily turned and walked away. Layla could only watch his retreating back, unable to do anything. Looking at Bill's expression, it seemed he had wanted to say those things for a long time, only afraid that she would hate him. Bill sadly sat down. He didn't know why he had acted that way. He didn't know when he had let his emotions get out of control and said such harsh words. Regardless, he shouldn't have said he'd never see her again. Oh dear, this temper. While he was lost in a jumble of mixed emotions, a voice rang out beside his ear. Uncle. Bill was extremely surprised to see that person. Kyle, the boy he still considered a child, but now he was dressed neatly and had grown into a man. Kyle was a little curious. Why are you standing out here? Where's Layla? Bill merely pretended to turn away. Who knows? Kyle was surprised. Huh? Layla's not home? It's almost time for the party. The door suddenly opened, drawing the attention of both Biller and Kyle. Long, slender legs accompanied by beautiful shoes emerged. Layla stepped out shyly, feeling a little unfamiliar with herself. That dress, those eyes, along with the jewelry, further enhanced Layla's beauty. Kyle couldn't take his eyes off Layla when he saw her like this. Biller put an arm around Kyle's shoulder, pulling him away. Stay sharp. Today you're standing in for me, which means you have to protect Layla well. Can you do that? Kyle replied confidently. Of course, I'll protect her. Taking a deep breath, Kyle stepped forward. Layla said, looking down. Do I look strange? I still feel like this outfit doesn't quite suit me. Kyle replied with a bright smile. Not at all. You look beautiful. I'm being honest. All right, then let's go, Miss Layla. Just bear with it a little. Today is a special day, so let's think of ourselves as more than just friends today. Mala was Prince Edmund's companion at the party. Hearing this, Layla felt much more confident. She said, All right, I'll try my best. Uncle, I'm leaving now. Layla said goodbye. Bill waved back. Yes, go on now. He secretly hoped that Layla wouldn't get hurt today and could enjoy herself. The mansion was bustling, an entire area lit up brightly under the lights, accompanied by the melodious sounds of string instruments and music. Layla kept worrying about her outfit, even though Kyle had assured her it was fine. He told her, Don't be so stressed. Just trust your companion today, and everything will be all right. The two of them also caught Martius's attention. He directed his gaze towards Layla's position. His eyes intently watched Layla and Kyle, his expression growing even more serious. Hessen truly was a perfect butler. This was evident in Layla's appearance. Even without elaborate makeup or splendid attire, Layla still shone with her natural beauty. The emerald necklace on her fair neck also made her stand out even more. I saw that necklace in a display window while on my way to a date. Its clear blue color, like a summer forest, left a deep impression on me.
On my way back to the manor, I asked Hessen to buy it for me, as I imagined her eyes would sparkle like emeralds. It seemed Layla had also noticed Duke Martius looking at her. This startled Layla. His gaze didn't leave her for a moment. Layla quickly looked away. She didn't want to face him at this moment. Martius maintained that same expression, but seemed somewhat displeased. A man approached, saying, "Long time no see, Duke Hates. How have you been?" But Martius was thinking about something else. Even while conversing and greeting acquaintances, my senses were constantly drawn to a certain place. Tonight, the doctor's son will proudly escort Layla, as if she belongs to him, even though she's wearing an outfit that belongs to me. Claudine introduced Layla to everyone.
Everyone warmly welcomed the guest. It turned out to be the companion who had been with the young lady all this time. It's a pleasure to meet you, but that name sounds quite unfamiliar, doesn't it? She is the girl adopted and raised by the gardener at Arvis Manor. Claudine glanced at Layla, smiled, and said, "She is a lost orphan who was allowed to stay here thanks to the Duke and Duchess Herhard's permission. That's also how I came to meet her. Don't worry, despite her difficult circumstances, Layla has grown into a respectable person, and she is preparing to become a teacher after graduation. Isn't that wonderful?" Everyone admired Claudine. Miss Layla was also wonderful, but it was the young lady's benevolent nature that was truly admirable. Perhaps that's why the Herhard family cherished the young lady so much. "I heard the young lady is about to get engaged. Congratulations." Claudine chuckled. "I'm a bit embarrassed because this news hasn't been officially announced yet, but I've already received congratulations. And Duke Herhard had just arrived." Everyone said that Martius now also wanted to be by Claudine's side. Claudine happily linked arms with Martius. The Duke's timing was perfect.
These are my friends. I'd like to introduce them to you. This is Lady Berta of Count Miter's house, and this is Lady Grizz of Marquis Weiss's house. Layla hoped they wouldn't notice her. And this is Layla. Do you remember? We once went to a cafe together? Martius didn't smile or say anything. Layla didn't dare to look up. "Hello, Duke." It was strange. A child who was always as calm as a lake, no matter how much she was humiliated, now blushed deeply and was so flustered in front of the Duke. Was it wrong, in Mother's opinion, to have a girl like that by Martius's side? Actually, on the day everyone went hunting in the forest together, Claudine couldn't shake off an inexplicable feeling of unease. That day, the Duke said he would take a walk alone in the forest and let everyone else return first, only coming back to the villa late in the evening as the sun set. Normally, there would be nothing strange about that, but that day there was something very suspicious. Did the Duke truly just go for a walk until late evening? And Layla with her difficult circumstances? How could she be wearing such magnificent attire tonight? Emeralds, diamonds, and even pearls were all exquisitely crafted, too intricate and beautiful to be fake. If someone were to give Layla a necklace like that, then... Excuse me, please forgive me for interrupting, but may I escort my dance partner away? My friends also want to meet Layla. Kyle appeared out of nowhere and said. Claudine was surprised. The person who had transformed Layla into a princess today was not a duke or any other noble figure, but rather Kyle Edmund, the doctor's son. Even though he had a dance partner, we couldn't monopolize Layla. Claudine couldn't believe it. Impossible. No matter how wealthy his family was, Kyle was still just a doctor's son. As she was walking away, Claudine called Layla back. "You look truly beautiful today, especially that necklace." Layla, bewildered, could only thank her. Then Claudine turned to Marcius and asked, "The necklace suits Miss Layla very well, doesn't it, Duke?" Marcius merely replied curtly, "It suits her well enough." It seemed this answer was what Claudine wanted. After being freed, Layla whispered her thanks to Kyle. Kyle just wondered why she endured so much. They treated her like a joke and humiliated her. Why would Layla, a person full of self-respect and intelligence, silently endure it like a fool? Layla didn't deny it, replying, "Whatever, it's not entirely untrue. I'm an orphan, indebted to Uncle Bill, and I'm going to be a teacher. Don't worry, I don't pay much attention to those words." Kyle was at his wit's end with Layla. Layla leaned against the railing, sighing that human nature was inherently multifaceted, but Kyle found that too profound for someone like her. He thought, she's quite articulate after all. Layla subtly dismissed Kyle. "You can go now. You have many people to meet, and your mother is waiting for you too." Kyle replied, "Today I came here as your dance partner, so I'll stay by your side. It's what I want." He asked, "Why aren't you saying anything?" Layla avoided his gaze, only saying, "I just don't know anymore." Seizing the opportunity, Kyle teased her, "Don't tell me you're that embarrassed." "Your face is red," which made Layla cover her face. "Really? No, it's not." Then his mother arrived. "Kyle, what are you doing here? I've been looking for you everywhere. Do you know how important today is? Come here quickly. Someone wants to meet you." "Kyle, are you daring to joke with me? Even Madame Norma is looking for you. You're not going to make her wait, are you?" Layla pushed his back. "Do what your mother says, Kyle. I'll wait for you here." Kyle's mother also nodded. "Thank you for understanding, Layla." Kyle said anxiously, "I'll be right back, so you absolutely must wait, okay?" Layla smiled and waved. Then she fell into her own contemplation once more, listening to the melody of the music. The music sounds so good. My role is over now. All that's left is to quietly wait for Kyle here. The music continued to play and on.
something caught Layla's eye. Seeing her reflection in the door, Layla recalled what Uncle Biller had told her. He had said that,
But to me, these things were more beautiful than they deserved to be. The dress was soft as if woven from clouds, the shoes adorned with exquisite embroidered patterns, and this necklace, too. I never imagined there could be such beautiful fake jewelry in the world. Perhaps that's why Lady Claudine said what she did. Perhaps it wasn't exactly a compliment, but rather a subtly conveyed mockery or pity. But no matter what, it didn't matter. This was a gift from Uncle Biller to me, and that alone was enough. Layla suddenly saw someone. It was Duke Herhart and Lady Claudine. Martius also saw her, then shifted his gaze towards Claudine. A strange feeling stirred within Layla at that moment. She always became so sad. Claudine's hand rested on the railing. The night air was so refreshing. I like summer because the nights are always beautiful like this. What about you, Duke Herhart? Martius replied indifferently. I don't particularly like summer, lady. Then Claudine continued. How surprising. I thought you liked summer.
Duke, you truly are a cold man. Of course, I don't mean to blame you, you know. In fact, I like that coldness about you, the way you always maintain your composure and elegant aristocratic demeanor. Claudine stepped closer to Martius. Duke, kiss me. I like your coldness, Duke, but don't we also need a minimum of passion between us? Martius deliberately emphasized, a minimum of passion, a truly convincing remark. Then Martius touched Claudine's neck. Deep, affectionate eyes accompanied by a warm smile. In that hazy, dreamlike state, Martius imagined it was Layla. Recalling the scene where they stood together under the moonlight, Martius suddenly broke free from that reverie. He still paid attention to Layla's mood. Then he slowly lowered his lips to Claudine. The scene of the two of them kissing outside the mansion, only Layla witnessed it. Claudine's shoulders also trembled. And then Martius's gaze remained fixed on Layla.
Layla didn't understand why she kept looking at them like that, and she also recalled the time Martius touched her lips. He gently soothed those lips, and suddenly Layla blushed for no apparent reason. She turned and walked away, leaving on her own without waiting for Kyle. The door slammed shut forcefully. From beginning to end, Martius kept watching Layla. When their lips parted, Claudine was inwardly triumphant. Tonight was exceptionally beautiful. Martius said, Now let's go back, young lady. Their hands touched again. Claudine smiled and said, I am certain, Duke, that we will make a wonderful couple. Layla ran away from there, stopping when she was exhausted. She bent down low, touching her shoes. The shoes her uncle had bought for her were stained with blood. She just wanted to go home immediately. What should she do? She had promised to wait, so she probably had to go back. But she truly didn't have enough courage. Perhaps she should sit in the garden for a while.
Then come back when Kyle returns. It should be okay to sit here, right? After all, I'm a guest today. Layla took off her shoes. She truly couldn't understand. No matter how she thought about it, how could they be like that? Clearly knowing someone else was there, perhaps they didn't even care at all. In their eyes, servants were no different from objects. Layla pondered the moment from earlier. Why did he do that? It was truly disgusting. The lights in the room were extremely bright. Kyle's mother said cheerfully, How could you bestow such a great favor? That is truly kind, madam. She smiled and replied, How could that compare to Dr. Edmund's dedication as our family doctor? As everyone knows, Baron Arndt's family is a prestigious one. If two families of suitable status were to form a bond, it would be good for both. Kyle's mother liked this very much. Baron Arndt's family has a daughter. She is the same age as our Edmund, and it's time to think about marriage. This is such a wonderful opportunity that it presented itself. Yet my only son is still preoccupied with that orphan girl.
There is no other way. If the boy continues like this, I'll have to step in. Lady, if it's not too much trouble, may I go and greet them now? She also accepted. Very well, Lady Edmund. They are also attending the party today. Greeting them beforehand wouldn't be bad. And they had Baron and Baroness Arndt summoned. Grandmother personally arranged the match. Although they held no title, the Edmund family was much wealthier than the Arndt family. Their reputation was by no means inferior. If the two families became closer, then despite the difference in status, this would still be a reasonable marriage. Kyle wanted to leave, but his mother wouldn't allow it. This is the party I prepared for you. Doing so would be disrespectful. Don't say another word, just stay here obediently. The mother was full of love and expectations for her son. As for the son, though he desperately wanted to leave, he couldn't bear to disappoint his mother. If that's the case, then so be it. Martius now set his wine glass down. The innocent first love of the good son, its outcome was already clear. Kyle would forever maintain the role of the dutiful and polite son, while Layla would be abandoned amidst his mother's ambitions.
And the child's obedience. Finally, she would remain here, in her forest, exactly where she belonged, in the garden. Martius saw Layla sitting dejected on the chair, his eyes gazing at her affectionately. Layla had already fallen asleep. Martius moved closer, bending down to get a good look at Layla's face as she slept. Then he sat down beside her, observing her intently. The wound on Layla's leg was bleeding, blood seeping onto her shoes. Layla opened her eyes slightly, dreamily calling out to the Duke. When Martius stood up holding Layla's shoes, Layla startled awake, exclaiming, "My shoes!" Martius spoke up. "Should I return them?" Layla quickly said, "Yes, please give them back to me." Before returning the shoes, Martius asked Layla, "Then try crying just once, Layla." Layla was bewildered. What? Take someone's precious belongings and then tell them to cry? Does he always find ways to tease others like this for his own amusement?
Layla's sorrowful gaze seemed to be waiting for something. How wonderful it would be if Kyle could come now. Martius noticed and looked in Layla's direction, knowing who she was waiting for. So Martius immediately said, "He won't come. Kyle Edmund, the one you're waiting for." "No, that's not true, Your Grace. Kyle is a man of his word." "Really, you seem very certain, don't you? I know what kind of person Kyle is, much better than you do, Your Grace." "Don't be so confident, Layla." Layla looked at Martius, hesitatingly saying, "I truly don't understand. Why do you hate me so much, Your Grace?" "Let's see. The reason I hate you. Hating you makes me feel better. When you cry, I find it amusing. When you beg, I feel pleased." Martius's answer made Layla uncomfortable. "How can you say such things, Your Grace?" "Layla, I'm just answering your question. You don't act this way with others, do you, Your Grace? So why only with me?"
Martius spoke briefly, for it was Layla, not anyone else, but she was a nobody. Martius's words deeply hurt Layla. Even the relatives who had spoken harsh words and driven me away, or the drunken uncle who beat me every day, no one had cruelly trampled on my heart like this. "I apologize, Duke, for I, a nobody, dared to remain in your domain. If that's the case, you shouldn't have allowed me in the first place." Martius asked Layla, "Don't you find that too heartless?" Layla's eyes welled up. "You are already too heartless. So what do you intend to do now? Drive me away?" Martius said casually, "No, don't worry. You are still useful. You just said I was a nobody." Martius looked at Layla. "That is your role." Layla was about to apologize to Martius once more, but before she could speak, Martius stopped her. "Don't apologize anymore." Martius stood closer to Layla and said, "The Kyle Etman you are waiting for will."
So Layla, go ahead and cry, beg if you must. Inside the lavish villa, everyone was joyfully mingling at the party. Come on, let's toast, Martius. Martius recalled Layla's image. Layla had cried, and she cried so beautifully, so I was willing to return the shoes. As I left the garden and walked to the end of the promenade, Layla was still standing there, tears streaming down her face. Tears for me, entirely mine. Funnily enough, those tears had erased the unpleasant feeling I had when looking at her, and even the indescribable sensation I felt when I kissed Claudine while looking at her. While Martius was lost in thought about Layla, her figure suddenly flashed past. Today, Layla had realized a clear boundary between her and that young man, the meaning of their respective positions, and the reason why he wouldn't come to her in the end. Layla asked a servant to inform Kyle that she was leaving, then quickly departed. Martius called the servant back.
"Master, what do you need?" Martius said, "Call Count Klein for me, on the second floor, at the balcony." The servant immediately left. Martius knew that the Count wouldn't come because he had left early. Calling him was merely an excuse to buy time. While the servant went to look for the Count, Layla quickly left the garden with familiar steps. She was someone who always protected what belonged to her, even to the point of recklessness, yet held no attachment to things that weren't hers. She didn't look back once, as if there was no longer any reason for her to stay in this place. The servant returned. "Excuse me, master, Count Klein has already left." Martius casually said, "Is that so? Thank you." Martius turned back to the party. Halfway there, Martius stopped, looking down at Kyle Etman's table. Even if the doctor's son had heard Layla's message and belatedly left his mother's embrace to look for her, nothing would change now. Layla had left, and the boring summer night party would still continue. In the morning at Layla's house. "Uncle, we really have to leave now, or we'll miss the train." As Layla was closing the door, Uncle Builder asked, "Layla, are you really okay? You'll be alone for several days straight." "I'll be fine. It's only 3 days. Besides, this is your brother's funeral. You have to go, don't you?" Uncle Builder sighed. "Even though we haven't been in touch for decades, my absence probably won't be a big deal." "Don't worry, Uncle. I'll be fine." Uncle Builder replied, "Yes, I know. But Layla, that day at the party, did anything happen between you and Kyle?" Layla quickly replied, "Me and Kyle? No, nothing at all." "That's good then. But it's really strange that I haven't seen that kid around lately." Layla said to Uncle Builder, "Both of us have just been busy lately. Kyle also has to prepare for his university entrance exams." "Oh, right, that must be it. You two are so close after all. I was worrying for nothing. All right then, Layla. If you get too scared being home alone, Kyle can come stay with you." As soon as he finished speaking, Uncle Biller felt something was wrong. "No, this won't do. Now I can't be at ease with it anymore." He instructed Layla, "You haven't forgotten what I told you, have you? Always lock the doors carefully. Even if it's hot, you must keep the windows tightly shut. The hunting rifle is hung in my room. If needed," Layla quickly interjected, continuing Uncle Biller's words, "bring it to sleep next to the bed, right? If there's a bad guy, I'll shoot him straight. Eat well, study hard. Is that all right? Uncle Biller looked at Layla, adding, one more thing. If Kyle comes, you must send him home before sunset. If he refuses to leave, use a shovel to hit him out. Do you hear me? Kyle blurted out, huh? To that extent? Uncle Biller continued, that day, looking at him, I saw he's already a man now. The way he looked at you, it wasn't ordinary. Thinking back, that kid is the most dangerous one. Layla shyly said, oh, Uncle, what strange things are you saying? Uncle Biller burst out laughing. I'm just kidding, just kidding. All right, now go inside.
Uncle has already told Mrs. Mona. If you need anything, just ask her. Layla nodded. Yes, Uncle, please be careful. Uncle Bill waved goodbye to Layla. I'm off now. Despite putting on a brave face for her uncle and assuring him she was okay, it seemed the next 3 days would be very long. A bird was perched outside Kyle's window. A small piece of paper was tied to its leg. Kyle saw it and went to retrieve the paper. Sorry, Kyle, you shouldn't come to the cabin today. Uncle Bill had some business to attend to in his hometown, so he'll be away for a few days. I've made plans to go to the library with my classmates. I'll be back after dinner, so don't wait. See you next time. Goodbye. Kyle sadly tossed the paper onto the table. It had been several days, and the notes were always the same. An appointment, going out to town, helping in the garden. Today, it was the library. At first, I was suspicious, but now I'm certain. Layla is avoiding me. It makes sense. If it were me, I'd do the same. I said I would be her companion. Kyle tormented himself. I should have protected her, but I left Layla alone. Kyle's mother saw him like that and scolded him. You fool, why are you tormenting yourself like this? Kyle thought, I'm despicable. I can't stand myself anymore. I should have left there faster. But why couldn't I? So cowardly. I just have a bad feeling that if this continues, I will lose her forever. Suddenly, Kyle sprang to his feet. No, I must see Layla in person and talk to her. Layla was outside at the clothesline, carefully hanging each piece of clothing. Kyle's call for Layla echoed from afar. Layla heard it, as if someone was calling for her. Layla was surprised when she saw Kyle. Kyle said to Layla, I'm truly sorry. I was wrong. Layla interrupted. No, don't say that. I'm the one who lied. Why are you apologizing? Layla continued. No, it's all my fault. I understand why you're like this. I promised to stay by your side, to come back right away, but I didn't keep my word. I'm sorry. There won't be a next time, Layla explained. Kyle, I'm not angry or sad with you about what happened that day, really. Then why? Why do you keep avoiding me? Layla didn't know what to say. I'm truly not angry with Kyle. It's just that day, I suddenly realized a truth I had tried to forget, that he and I belong to two completely different worlds. Or perhaps I had always known it, but deliberately ignored my unfortunate childhood. Layla remembered her childhood, the first day she met Kyle Edman. My name is Kyle. What's yours? It was the first time someone had extended their hand to me first. I'm Layla Rowan. Kyle also happily said, Nice to meet you, Layla Rowan. It wasn't pity or contempt. Kyle and Layla climbed a tree together to watch the adorable birds. Are you talking about these baby birds? Kyle asked, delighted. The tiny flowers are truly wonderful. Are there others elsewhere? Layla led Kyle to see other places. Yes, come with me. He simply approached me with sincerity. Those warm memories and feelings are, to me, no less precious than meeting Uncle Biller. Layla brought Kyle home to play. Uncle, Kyle is here to play. Kyle politely said, Hello, Uncle. You are, Kyle quickly interjected. If it's not too much trouble, could I have dinner with everyone? Uncle Biller spoke up. Not at all, come on in. Why do children have to grow up into adults? Recalling that innocent sadness upon returning home, I decided one thing. For you, my dear friend, I will be the one to let go first. Layla put down her teacup. Kyle, I think it's time we kept our distance. Hearing this, Kyle's eyes widened as he looked at Layla. What? What are you talking about? Don't tell me you saw what happened that day. Yes, so this is the right thing to do, Kyle. Only this way can we remain good friends forever. What are you saying? To be good friends, we have to stay apart? Do you know how ridiculous you sound? Layla said frankly, No, these are my true feelings. I don't want to lose you. Who said I want to lose you?
Me too, Layla's eyes sparkled as she looked at Kyle. We can never be apart. That can never happen. Kyle quickly interrupted Layla, grabbing her hand tightly and saying, I will never lose you, and I won't be apart from you for that reason. Layla quickly pulled her hand away. Kyle, it's finally time for us to grow up. Layla stood up and said, Have lunch before you go, Kyle. I'll prepare quickly. Kyle stared blankly at the hand that had just held Layla's, then slowly placed that hand palm down on the table. Riette was reading the newspaper when she saw a bird perch on Marcius's head. The bird then hopped down to Marcius's shoulder. How could that bird be so lucky? Even on this hot day, Duke Erhard was wearing a tight, elaborate suit. How could that bird casually play with him without any worries? I never would have expected someone like Marcius to keep a bird as a pet like that, especially with the expression on his face.
It's an image I still haven't been able to get used to. Riette whispered to Claudine, why don't you try wearing a yellow dress for the engagement ceremony? I think the Duke would adore you as much as that bird if you did. Claudine replied, no, I hate yellow. Besides, it's just a superficial thing. Riette chuckled. Is that so? You'll be the most powerful woman in our society. Surely a yellow dress wouldn't suit that at all. Besides, you'll be the lady who will even surpass the future queen, so you'll need to control your appearance. Claudine immediately said, Riette, are you starting with that again? What's wrong? That's what everyone's saying. I've been wondering something, Claudine. How do you feel about actually becoming a princess after you become part of the Herhart family? Claudine was silent for a moment. Then Claudine pricked Riette's hand with a needle. She actually pinched me, Claudine said coldly. Stop joking, Riette.
By the way, Martius, when will you be discharged from the military? After your engagement, can't you just focus on your family's business? Martius replied, I'm not sure. It wouldn't hurt for me to stay in the military for another year or two. However, I only say that because it's a tradition of the Herhart family. But it seems you are much more devoted to our country. Duke Martius, after you are discharged, you will surely be one of the most powerful dukes your family has ever had. Suddenly, Riette exclaimed, I can't believe your engagement is about to happen. It feels so strange. Martius held the young bird in his hand, then put it in a cage. Then Martius said, well then, you two can stay here and rest a little longer. Riette asked Martius, where are you going, Martius? Martius walked and said, the annex, I have a lot of work to do. It was an impulsive desire, a sudden urge to go to the annex and bury myself in work until dinner.
That was certainly the case until I left the mansion. However, when I suddenly stopped and started looking around, before I realized it, I was standing on the path leading to the gardener's house. Martius pulled down his tie. Desiring to feel her gaze, all my senses focused on that as an uncontrollable heat began to build deep within my body. There were times when my will couldn't suppress those tremors and moments of weakness. Each time I realized I was being dominated by those emotions, my discomfort grew intensely. That was not something that should be a priority in my life, and of course, the same should apply to Layla. Closing his eyes in thought, Martius suddenly realized, perhaps, that was precisely why I wanted to explore it even more, to explore the limits of these emotions. Suddenly, from outside in the garden, Layla's cry for help rang out. Help me, is anyone nearby? No, I thought if I applied a little more force, the branch would break.
Calm down. I need to calm down. Just a little further. If I can reach it, I'll make it. Layla trembled, saying, please. Layla's shoe slipped off and fell to the ground. Layla thought in fear, if I fall from here, I'll at least break a leg. Why is this happening when Uncle Bill isn't home? A few minutes earlier, after lunch with Kyle, I was walking him home when I suddenly heard birds chirping and started looking around. I found a baby bird sitting on the ground, seemingly crying. Where am I? I'm so sad. I realized it must have been a newly hatched bird from one of the nests in the large trees in the backyard. It must have fallen out of its nest, right? It had fallen from quite a height, but at least it didn't seem to be injured anywhere. Don't worry, I'll take you home. I carefully placed the baby bird back in its nest. Goodbye, be well, and be more careful from now on. But fortunately, I escaped that dangerous situation by clinging to a nearby branch.
However, it seems it's only a matter of time before I fall to the ground. I don't know how much longer this branch can hold me. If only Kyle hadn't left, maybe he could still hear my voice. Kyle, please come back, I need help. Martius now walked over and saw the shoe right in front of him. Up in the tree, Layla was still trying to call Kyle's name. Martius looked up. What are you doing, Layla Rowellyn? Why do you like climbing trees so much? Should I help you? Layla suddenly fell silent, her face bewildered. That voice? It certainly wasn't Kyle's voice. It was the Duke. Then Layla closed her eyes, calling Kyle's name even louder. Kyle! I don't think he's coming. Layla angrily snapped at Martius. Please go away. Why are you standing there if you're not going to help? You're clearly about to fall and begging for help. I'm not that heartless. Layla exclaimed. What are you talking about? Martius continued. I can call that Edmund fellow you mentioned if you want, but considering your current height, I think it would be better if I called his father instead. Layla replied, if my legs somehow remain intact, even if I fall, the first thing I'll do is kick you. I feel like a small stone on the road, like a fragile tree about to drop its fruit. I've truly reached my limit. I can't bear it anymore. Oh really? Then call me. Layla fumed. What? Martius said, call me to help you. Rather than beg a man like him to save me, I'd rather let myself fall. But the branch kept shaking. I was so scared because it was too high. At some point, I started calling out to him without even realizing it, because he was my last hope. No. Layla let go of the branch. Seeing this, Martius rushed over to catch her. And then Martius embraced Layla. He had arrived. I could imagine his expression at that moment, but I was too embarrassed to look. I had fallen from a great height, but there was no pain. I only felt a slight dizziness in my head and my heart pounding.